Belvedere Street and Stewart Street at Huntington Avenue. This was new business on October 5th, 2017. Had its first public hearing on October 19th, 2017. Had a public hearing continued on November 2nd, 2017, and a second public hearing continued on November 16th, 2017. It was as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Grant of Location Plan, National Grid Back Bay, IP Main Extension, Boston, 21 sheets, dated December 1st, 2017.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, fellow members of the PIC Board. My name is Joe Carroll, National Grid. I'm joined by several of my colleagues here to review the project as aforementioned on Agenda 1.
We can't hear it. Excuse me.
Sure.
Mic's not on.
Mr. Carroll, can you speak up?
Green light is on, the mic is on. I will try to talk as loud as I can.
Good.
Is that all right?
Better.
I'll repeat where I was. So good morning, Chair, Osgood, fellow members of the PIC Board. My name is Joe Carroll, National Grid. I'm joined by several of the colleagues to review the items as aforementioned on Agenda 1 of today's PIC hearing. If I may ask through the Chair, if I could include also Agenda 2. I understand we have to go through both, but if I could go through 1 and 2, since it comprises the same project, it might be worthwhile from that, and we can still go through Agenda 2 as well, but if that leads, or we can just start with Agenda 1. I'll leave it up to...
It would be great to do sort of a review of the actual proposal that includes both segments and
Okay.
what you're looking to do.
All right, thank you. And again, we'll go through the second item as well. National Grid is the local distribution natural gas company for the city of Boston, servicing over 200,000 plus customers in and around every neighborhood except for Hyde Park. The system itself within the city is predominantly all low pressure, which is about a quarter pound from a technical standpoint. And that low pressure is served by what we call a Boston IP loop that has been in operations for a long time, and that's running at 22 pounds. That IP loop provides natural gas to the low pressure. That low pressure provides services to all the residential and commercial buildings situated across various parts of the city and on all the neighborhoods. Currently, where this ask is and where we have a line now in the Back Bay, there is actually a void of that IP loop in that area. Understanding the demand that's going on over that way and ensuring that the current customers operating off the low pressure in that area will continue to be delivered. We felt that it would be a prudent step to ensure that by installing a gas main extension off the existing IP 22-pound line. An extension is something similar that we do across the city in terms of if residents looking for gas and there's not a gas main on their street, we would extend that gas line. This is what we're trying to do in this public process now, is to extend the existing IP line currently operating across all the neighborhoods in the city of Boston into the Back Bay. Again, to fill that void, and in this particular thing with regard to the customers that are looking for it now. In terms of that development, we do need to deliver 2 pounds of pressure for their equipment. Again, low pressure is at a quarter pound. So this IP line is able to deliver that, and that IP line is actually operating in other areas of the city, connected directly to those commercial buildings from that end. I'd like to turn it over to Paul, who's a project manager for that, to kind of walk through from a technical standpoint of where it is, how we looked at that route, conversations from that end, dialogue within that area. You know, it is a very crowded and busy street underground, not only above ground. So if I could do that, just to give a synopsis on that, and then we'll entertain any questions as possible.
Good morning. My name is Paul DiLorenzo. I'm the lead project manager for National Grid for our main extension project. So as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, we are looking to break both sections up and talk about...
Could you speak into the microphone, please? We can't hear.
You can sit here and just walk you through.
again, we appreciate you taking the opportunity this morning for us to present this grand location.
Can you hear in the back?
Just don't even,
Mind speaking
just
up?
talk right to the mic, don't even talk to the map.
So both sections are going to be presented as one complete project right now this morning, both Section 1 and Section 2. We begin, we pick up our existing IP main at the intersection of Berkeley Street and Cortez. That will be where the main extension will get its supply. We will run our route along Berkeley Street until we get to Stanhope Street. We will continue our main extension along Stanhope Street until we get to Clarendon Street. The proposed route now takes us along Clarendon Street until we get to Stewart Street. From Stewart Street, we'll run along Stewart Street until we get to the Mass DOT bridge component. From there, we will be entering the I-90 tunnel, suspending our gas main in the I-90 tunnel. We exit the I-90 tunnel almost at Huntington Ave and continue along Huntington Ave until we get to Belvedere Street. From Belvedere Street, we continue all the way until we get to Dalton Street, and that's the completion of the project for this rental location.
Do you have approval from Mass DOT to hang this pipe inside their tunnels?
Yes, we have met with them repeatedly on that, went through all that in terms of waiting, covered all their safety perspectives, requirements, fireproofing from that end.
So you do have their
Yes.
approvals? And at Dalton Street, where do you terminate this? At Dalton Street, where do you terminate it? Exactly where?
So the intersection of Belvedere and Dalton Street, we actually terminate right at that intersection, and we'll supply a large customer from Dalton Street.
What would be the duration of this?
Until we see permits and stipulations for permits, right now the construction schedule is at least at a minimum, if we were to get started, let's say in January, we probably would have an 8-month construction window. Depending on permit stipulations, it potentially could roll into a 15-month schedule.
And all that work, depending on the permit, obviously there was a lot of activity in and around that area from a July 4th standpoint to a marathon standpoint. We're also weather dependent as well from that end, so typically it's looking at a Monday through Friday type thing. But again, depending on the permit, and we do have some community meetings coming up in January as well.
Do you know how many existing gas leaks you may have on the right-of-way that you're looking to dig up as part of this project?
In terms of that, we do annual surveys in and around that area. We have an aggressive program in terms of addressing not only repairing gas leaks, but also replacement of gas mains in an area. That does not stop. The crews that would be doing this from a contractual standpoint will not be pulled from any type of emergency response work, any type of leak response work, any type of main replacement work from that end. As we go through this, as with any project, it will be continually monitored by National Grid employees from that area. And if there's any issues or concerns from that end, as we do typically from any type of paver, any other type of street work, we would do the repairs there. Again, the idea is this is a main extension that we normally do throughout our day-to-day activities. This is running off existing gas main from that end. These are contractual crews that will not be working on the live gas where we would have our own National Grid employees performing all those repairs.
Mr. Carroll, the technical specifications of your pipe system, which governmental agency oversees or regulates the technical specifications of your pipe?
Department of Public Utilities.
And this project has their approval?
Well, from a DPU standpoint, yes. They have pipeline inspectors that would warrant, and then they can come out at any point, any time to do any type of inspections on it. From a standpoint of how we install pipe, we have to follow procedures set forth, not only by the state, but more federal line as well. Because of the area where we're working, we are using steel, welded steel pipe, since there is other steam lines in there, so predominantly, it's made up of cast iron, which is what we're replacing. You see a lot more use of plastic because of where we live in the Northeast from the frost and the weather element. But when you're working in close proximity to any type of a steam, system, we have to use welded steel from that end.
Amy Todd, they have all necessary approvals from all parties?
Yes, all relevant agencies have submitted their
Okay. Other questions from members of the PIC?
You're aware of the stipulations from BWSC for full-time resident engineering at the expense of the utility?
Yes, we are.
Questions or comments from Amy or Todd? Members of the public who'd like to testify on this? Sorry, if there are any members of the public who would like to testify.
Hi, Giselle Guerrero on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. At this moment, we would like to stand in support of the PIC pipeline in regards to the fact, just stating that National Grid has fulfilled the Mayor's Office requirement to meet with the community. They've met with the Back Bay Association. They have also met with St. Botolph Neighborhood Association. We've got confirming emails. They've also met with leadership within the Neighborhood Association of the Back Bay. And at our request, they will be continuing a public process with the community. Those meetings will be public to everyone that is here and anyone else in the community that will wish to attend to learn more about the project, to ask questions. Those meetings will be made public. They will be in January, and those details you have before you, I'm sure that you guys will share it. So at this moment, we would just like to say that they have met and fulfilled our requirements to meet with the community. Thank you.
You want to go? Okay. Well, my name's Lee Humphrey, and I'm a resident of the Back Bay. And I'm also a member of the Boston Clean Energy Coalition, the Green Committee of the Neighborhood Association, and the Gas Leaks Allies. And I have a statement, but I've been asked first, because Martin Broder can't be here, if I would deliver his statement. Martin is the chair of the Neighborhood Association of the Back Bay, and his statement is entitled, Request to Delay a Decision. Investments in infrastructure, such as the planned new National Grid gas distribution pipeline in Back Bay and adjacent neighborhoods, and in new buildings and their heating and cooling systems, are made with many years of operation in mind and with consideration of corresponding financial models. But the end dates for these new buildings and the pipeline that will serve them are much later than the dates set as targets for achieving substantial reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, reductions that will limit the risks and potential damage resulting from human contributions to climate change. Yet these long-term investments made today will increase, not decrease, greenhouse gas emissions, putting agreed-upon climate change targets for the city out of reach with highly deleterious consequences for all of us. The challenge we face is how to find a solution to this dilemma. If it is found that according to the conventional accounting and return on investment analyses, the new pipeline and the use of fracked gas appears to be more attractive than other alternatives. In this situation, one such alternative would be all electric buildings, provided the electricity supplied is increasingly generated from renewable sources. Related questions are, if we do not start now to stop using natural gas in new buildings, then when will this changeover come? Will it be at a future date when it will have become impossible to reach the goal of a net carbon zero Boston in time? The rational and honest conclusion is that resolving this dilemma demands an objective evaluation, or rather, reevaluation of the costs of current natural gas-based solutions against alternatives. Such an evaluation would take into account such externalities as, for example, the effects on the environment and the associated consequences, as well as their direct capital and operational costs. As things now stand, third parties who are stakeholders, and we are all stakeholders, do not have access to the cost calculations of developers that are said to justify their investment plans and demonstrate that possible alternative solutions to the use of natural gas are financially infeasible. Sensible decisions and practical compromises can only be achieved if they follow from an understanding of the cost to all of us and take into account the public interest as well as the interest of those directly involved in investments in natural gas and their users. Alternatives to be considered once this understanding is reached include, number one, proceed with currently proposed investments, but with an enforceable transition plan to new technologies. This plan will have to be implemented within a shorter period than the otherwise anticipated or traditional operational and depreciation lifetimes of the initial investments. Two, implement new solutions, possibly with some form of compensation or incentives, if and only if the additional costs compared to natural gas-based systems for their beneficiaries are significant in the shorter term. I therefore respectfully request the PIC to delay a decision on permitting the installation of the proposed natural grid pipeline, reflecting the spirit and intention of the City Council's resolution on this matter, until it has been impossible to evaluate the total costs and consequences of alternative solutions in a holistic context. On the basis of this knowledge, plans can be formulated in a transparent and open manner for how best to meet the needs of the new buildings this pipeline is destined to serve, while not compromising the city's ability to meet agreed targets for reductions in greenhouse gas emissions over time. And that's Martin's statement. I have a statement of my own. I'm coming here again to state my opposition to what National Grid is proposing. National Grid has offered no justification for the pipeline extension except to assure us that it is necessary. This is not enough. The City Council has asked for enough time to review the proposal thoroughly and approve or disapprove, and approval or disapproval should not be given until this is done. The project should be given a review that is independent and impartial, and enough time should be allowed for this to take place. This is not a small matter, and the decision should not be a rushed one. So far, no compelling justification for the additional pipeline has been given, and I hope you will delay your decision. And one more thing. We cannot continue to pour carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. This is not just an economic decision. It is not just a political decision. It is a moral decision. And it calls for each of us to say which side we are on. Thank you.
All right, take three. My name is Jacqueline Sector. I've been a Jamaica Plain resident for almost 10 years, and I'm a volunteer with Mothers Out Front. We're an organization of mothers, grandmothers, and caregivers who are deeply concerned about climate change and are working towards a livable climate for our children and all children. I have 2 children myself, a son, Benjamin, who is 5 years old, and a daughter, Amelia, who is 2 years old. And like all parents, I want them to have a bright and prosperous future. But the reality of climate change casts a dark cloud over their future. In an open letter to humanity signed by over 15,000 scientists from 184 countries, they say to us, by failing to adequately reduce greenhouse gases and incentivize renewable energy, humanity is not taking the urgent steps needed to safeguard our imperiled biosphere. This sentence is deeply frightening and astounding to me because scientists don't exaggerate about anything. While the gravity of the message should make each of us pause and think about what we need to do differently in this world, I believe that this letter will mostly fall on deaf ears, not because people don't want to do the right thing. No, they'll ignore it because they think that someone else is going to do something. They'll ignore it for the same reason that, in an emergency, we can't just yell into a crowd, call 911. When we yell for help, we have to point to someone and say, you, in the purple sweater, call 911 and be specific. Otherwise, no one will do anything. They'll assume that someone else must be doing something. These scientists have yelled, call 911. And we are going about our business, assuming someone else will pick up the phone and make the call. Maybe you think it's the role of the governor, or the mayor, or people you know who know about energy or business people. Maybe you think it's that those are the people that are supposed to do something about climate change. Maybe you think this letter really isn't to me. I am just a person in the crowd. I am here today to point the finger and ask you, you who have the responsibility to approve this new fossil fuel infrastructure, to do something. 15,000 scientists, men and women like yourself, who pore over maps and pay close attention to data and details, are asking you, not some other person in the crowd. They are asking you to do something different. The PIC's mandate is to ensure that the permits are correct and the construction plans are consistent with city regulations. But today, your jobs are much more than that. You have received a letter from 15,000 concerned scientists asking you not to invest in fossil fuels anymore. You have the power to comply with that request. Permits or not, this pipeline is contributing to the fossil fuel expansion that humanity can no longer afford. I am asking you to help for my children, your children, and the future of all children on this planet. Thank you.
To the members of the Public Improvement Commission, thank you for your time and attention to this important matter. My name is Michelle Brooks, and I serve as the Pipeline Outreach Coordinator at the Massachusetts Sierra Club, and I'm also a member of the Boston Clean Energy Coalition. I speak on behalf of all of our 8,000 Sierra Club members in the city in opposition to this project. It is my understanding that you may not have been involved in the prior approval of this project by the BPDA back in 2013, and that at this point in the process, options are limited. Based on what I do know from working with Jackie Royce and others from the Neighborhood Association of the Back Bay, there was little to no outreach or information provided to the residents of the community that will be directly affected by this new fracked gas pipeline. NAB and other allied groups of the Boston Clean Energy Coalition held numerous vigils in the Back Bay to spread awareness about the project and found that almost no one we spoke to had any idea about the pipeline. Whatever outreach was done, it does not seem that it was sufficient. Without the leadership of Jackie Royce and other members of the Neighborhood Association of the Back Bay, there would not have been any official public hearings held for residents to have the opportunity to ask questions and provide comment on the project. It was through their outreach and coordination with the city that these hearings are being scheduled. Up to now, you have heard from many partners and allies of the coalition, including NAB, Mothers Out Front, Sierra Club, Toxics Action Center, Environment Massachusetts, Massachusetts Climate Action Network, Boston Climate Action Network, 350 Mass Energy, Physicians for Social Responsibility, Mass Health Professionals for Clean Energy, and interfaith groups such as the United Church of Christ, who all oppose this pipeline. And the opposition continues to grow across Boston neighborhoods. All of these groups have come together in opposition to this project with grave concern about the near and future consequences this will have on our environment and on our health. We are connected through the common goal of seeking a cleaner, healthier future for the city, one that cannot be achieved by constructing new fracked gas pipelines. Therefore, we are asking the city to stop permitting new gas infrastructure. Natural gas is not a bridge fuel. It is a fossil fuel and releases methane into the air when it leaks. With methane being 25 times as potent as carbon dioxide over a 100 time frame, natural gas should not be considered a better alternative when taking into account all of the leaks throughout drilling, transmission, and distribution. In addition, with the city's recent announcement of its carbon neutral Boston plan aimed at reaching carbon neutrality by 2050, it makes absolutely no sense to construct new gas infrastructure now. This will lock us into dirty, air-polluting infrastructure for decades and make the city's goal unachievable. I am asking that out of respect for the community and the coalition's efforts to educate the public, you delay making a decision on the project until the 3 public hearings have been held. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Good morning. My name is Eugenia Gibbons. I'm the Clean Energy Programs Director at Mass Energy Consumers Alliance. We are a Boston-based consumer and environmental advocacy organization whose mission is to make energy affordable and environmentally sustainable. We are dedicated to helping Massachusetts achieve the greenhouse gas emissions reductions mandated by the Global Warming Solutions Act. And that includes helping cities like the city of Boston lead by example and honor the commitments, the very public commitments to clean energy and climate and to achieving carbon neutrality that were made as recently as last week. Statewide success in combating climate change and in delivering on the environmental, economic, and health promise of clean energy really does hinge on the ability of cities like Boston to be leaders, to be shining stars. Boston has always been a leader, and we know that moving forward on additional gas pipelines and increasing our reliance on gas will only undermine that leadership and will undermine our efforts to move forward down a clean energy path. The permit approval being considered today will, as I noted, fly in the face of the carbon neutral by 2050 commitment that was just referenced and that was stated last week, again, reiterated last week. And if granted, it will not only disregard that commitment, but it'll disregard the position taken unanimously by the City Council to allow for a comprehensive review and to allow for public input to be sought and received. It's a little bit unfortunate that a meeting with a few reps from a single neighborhood association somehow constitutes a comprehensive public engagement process. I would disagree with that, but there are apparently those who feel that that is sufficient. This permit, if approved, will set the city down the wrong path. It makes no sense to commit to gas when viable clean energy alternatives are available and have yet to be fully explored. I respectfully ask this commission to take that into consideration and to postpone its decision until all alternatives have been explored and the project has been thoroughly reviewed and a public engagement process has been fully completed. Thank you very much.
Good morning, and thank you. My name is Kathy Hoffman, and I was an honorary resident of West Roxbury for 1.5 years while I worked with the community forced to choose civil disobedience to try and stop that pipeline after there was complete opposition from every local official, every neighborhood activist in that thing, and it went ahead anyway, and the appeal is still in. So I hope that we don't get pushed to that same place of civil disobedience to try and stop this very, very, very challenging proposition. I agree with the person from the mayor's office that said neighborhood meetings need to continue, but those neighborhood meetings will only have any value if the decision is not made to go ahead with the pipeline. Otherwise, it's worthless. It's merely, I don't know, gratuitous. So I am much more in line with the City Council, which said, do not make a decision on this until there has been sufficient input. I wanted to say something about, so I also just say that, you know, despite one opinion of city official about this, you still have the ability to make the right decision, and I hope you will. I wanted to say a thing about safety. And I know that this pipeline has nothing like the 750 pounds per square inch of the West Roxbury pipeline, nor does it go by a blasting quarry. But one of the things that we discovered, a number of people who did civil disobedience in that case is still coming before the courts as Spectra Energy continues to come and say they have no accountability, they have no viability, they don't need to do anything. One of the things they did say finally in court is there was no safety plan for West Roxbury. There is no safety plan for West Roxbury. They didn't have to do it. In fact, FERC doesn't require it. So they went ahead and put in a pipeline that threatens the safety of neighbors with no safety plan. And I'm curious here about safety. I'm curious about the decision that this would start in January, when my understanding is that the winter months would not be time when you would be doing any underground work in the city of Boston. Certainly in West Roxbury, the assumption was you did nothing between November and April at the earliest. I'm curious about the response about DPU approval when you asked, is there DPU approval? And there was a long pause, a long silence, and then there was like, well, they will be checking up on this. So I don't know what that means. So I just want to conclude by asking for your thoughtfulness to continue this process in the face of what I see as sort of corporate violence, because the only reason for this pipeline would be to enhance the profit of the few over the safety of the community when there are really viable alternatives. Thank you.
My name is Mary Boyle, and I live in West Roxbury. National Grid is a company with a product to sell. Like any business, they try to develop markets for their products. But unlike a company that sells TVs or beverages, National Grid's product is fracked gas, methane. One way that National Grid has planned to develop new markets for its fracked gas is by inviting Spectra into West Roxbury, as you just heard from Kathy. They built a high-pressure gas transmission pipeline in a densely populated neighborhood and put a metering station right next to a blasting quarry. In other words, their marketing plan was willing to put West Roxbury into a sacrifice zone so that they could sell more of their product. When the West Roxbury pipeline was initially announced to the neighborhood, National Grid sent representatives, 2014, maybe it was some of these same people, to tell us that West Roxbury needed the gas. Well, that gas wasn't for West Roxbury. That gas is for this Back Bay pipeline. They knew that in 2014. We must now stop our dependency on fossil fuels, building new infrastructure that locks us into 50 or 60 years of using fracked gas only enhances the profits of a company. It does nothing for the common good.
Good morning. My name is Paula Georges, and I live in Jamaica Plain. And I am very confused about the statement from the neighborhood representative or services representative. The day before the mayoral election, I was at Curtis Hall Community Center in Jamaica Plain, and the mayor was there talking about the accomplishments of his administration. I had the opportunity, like others, to raise a question. I asked Mayor Walsh, why is this Back Bay pipeline being built? He said to me, and these probably are not his exact words, but pretty close, we lost on the West Roxbury pipeline, but we are pursuing alternatives to a gas pipeline in Back Bay. What happened to that statement? The next day was the election. Was it only election day politics? So I ask you, go back to Mayor Walsh and keep him at his word that alternatives will be explored. He particularly mentioned steam as an alternative, which does fuel Boston Medical Center. So, Mayor Walsh, where do you stand? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ania Camargo. I'm also with Mothers Out Front. I'm here as the mom of 2 teenage girls, Alexandra and Camilla. And I am here for some clarity on some of the questions that you all asked. The first one was about gas leaks. Mary Cerulli and I hired Gas Safety USA and went with the truck this Monday and followed the route looking for if there were live leaks. And there were 4 live leaks. I have the surveys here. One of them was a grade 1 leak. There was 7% methane in the manhole, which means that it is explosive. So we had to call it in. I'll hand this over to Amy when I'm done. But as you all know, the city passed an ordinance in December saying that when roads are open for repair or for whatever reason, leaks should be fixed. National Grid sued and has said they don't have, in other words, they've stopped that. So we would like to make sure that the leaks are known about and shared. The other piece that I think is really important and that was raised was where the DPU stands. I learned yesterday that that in October, National Grid filed with the DPU seeking approval of a 20-year contract between National Grid and One Dalton. And it seems that National Grid is looking to One Dalton to be the anchor customer to finance the pipeline, and that the contract requires DPU approval. That the AG is actively engaging in the review of this contract and has raised some important questions. I have the contract, that what the AG is asking right here, which I will also hand over to Amy. This hearing is set for next week, December 15th. So it seems it would be very premature and inappropriate for the PIC to issue a grant of location for the pipeline because the financing has not yet been finalized and it's not clear that it actually will happen. And then I just wanted to say that the other reasons why perhaps the decision should not be made is one, because the robust public process has not happened, and we're very grateful that we're going to have some public meetings, but it does seem that all the approvals should be after the public process. And then the other thing is that the City of Boston is engaging in a great process called Carbon Free Boston. And Carbon Free Boston is going to be done next year. And so it seems like there's potential that when Carbon Free Boston is saying we shouldn't have natural gas, this pipeline would be being built, and that would really make no sense. So again, for 3 reasons, I'm asking you to delay. 1, wait for the robust public process. 2, wait for the DPU hearing and the DPU to find its findings. And then 3, Carbon Free Boston. Thank you very much for letting me comment.
Hello, my name is Mary Russell, and I'm a resident of Roslindale. And I would just like to bring to your minds and all of our minds some really powerful visuals that take the idea of climate change into a searing reality. I would just like all of us to think about what we saw on television last night. The flames that are consuming large portions of California. That is not an accident. That is really real. And that is what climate change means on a daily basis. The actions, the reactions are happening now. The winds that we saw on television for all those hurricanes down in Puerto Rico and Houston, those slashing rain, it's terrifying. That is climate change. The disappearing Arctic ice cap, it's real. The fact that a ship could go through the Northwest Passage without an icebreaker is not a good thing. It means that the Arctic ice cap is disappearing completely in the summer when, as early as, and I have a picture of one of my paintings here that is based on the science of the Arctic ice cap, and it shows that in 1991, most of the Arctic ice cap was covered with ice even in the summertime, and they could never have gotten a ship through there without an icebreaker, or perhaps at all, or else they would have done it. So I really hope that you will all take that reality of what is happening right now. We can see it on our television screens and think that is climate change. And please delay this vote. Thank you for your service, and I will turn this picture of the painting over. Thank you.
My name is Cam Wilson. I'm from Jamaica Plain, and I'm with 350.org and Boston Climate Action Network, which help get community choice energy for Boston. And I'm here to speak for the third world and the humanity. And that's why she was talking about climate change being real, because to me, climate change is a train heading for the cliff. And everybody has to put their feet down to stop the train. One person putting their foot down isn't going to stop it. As the Mothers Out Front person said, you are the person who now needs to put your foot down along with the rest of us to stop climate change and stop pipelines, which are just, as was said, for the profits of the gas companies. And we need to keep gas in the ground. We need to keep we have enough above ground already. We don't need to take any more gas out of the ground. And so you're the ones that have to stop this to save the third world from drowning and California from burning and humanity to keep going. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Haitian Berens Wiramuni. I am speaking on behalf of City Councilor Tito Jackson, the District 7 City Councilor. Councilor apologizes particularly to the community members. He's actually downstairs chairing a Committee on Education hearing. Otherwise, he would certainly be here. This is the third time he is calling on this body to delay proceeding with the approval for this until a robust public process has actually been put in place. Councillor Jackson reiterates the unanimous resolution of the City Council to halt approval, as you've already heard many times. And frankly, Councillor Jackson continues to believe that it is absolute folly that we, as a city, continue to promote the use of fracking-based fossil fuels in order to heat luxury condo developments that further the housing and displacement crisis that we all face, while ignoring the voices of ordinary Bostonians. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Mary Cerulli. I'm with Mothers Out Front. I also had the pleasure of going out and actually measuring gas leaks. I've done this in Lexington, at Walden Pond, and most recently in the city of Boston, a couple blocks from my house. And I know that 1 Dalton is quite a building, and it's going to require a lot of energy. But currently there is a steam pipeline to 1 Dalton. So I question the financial analysis that we need a fracked gas pipeline from National Grid. I've also had the pleasure of working closely with National Grid on a pilot study and have really enjoyed working with utilities, working with the folks on the ground, wearing the hard hat, and I hope to continue this collaboration as it is important for public, private, and our government to work together to make Boston a leader, as was mentioned by Eugenia Gibbons so eloquently. So once again, I ask you as individuals and a group to consider strongly to delay this decision so we can do the right thing. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Meg Meinzer-Cohen, president of the Back Bay Association. And first of all, I really want to compliment the community organizing that's happened here. These are committed Bostonians who care a great deal about the future of our country and the city of Boston. It is a privilege as head of the Back Bay Association to be involved in so many public processes where and I've been at the Back Bay Association since 2000, and the city's commitment to sustainable energy and to really targeting how to become more environmentally friendly has ramped up so dramatically in the last 17 years, and especially under Mayor Walsh. It is truly laudable. In 2005, I mentioned this at the last hearing, there was an extensive planning process that began talking about development in this Stewart Street corridor. The community, including members of a group that was formed, asked for the city to do an assessment of the underlying utilities. A letter was written in 2005 requesting this study. Subsequently, with the development that we have identified, we identified the fact that this area was underserved for natural gas. It's not convenient. People may not like it. All of this underlying development has been planned for. There is zoning that's been put in place. And one of the realities of life is that in an old city like Boston, we must keep up with the underlying infrastructure that supports the important development that we are currently undergoing. There are large parts of Back Bay and even Beacon Hill that sustainable energy technology is not permitted. If you wanted to put solar panel on one of our buildings, if you wanted to put wind turbines, my point is not saying that we should remove the natural gas lighting on Beacon Hill. It is to say we do have underlying work that all of the community and activists may want to consider where there are policies that having to do with some of our architectural districts that have prevented development in areas that in other cities might, where there is some non-sustainable criteria that we advocate for in order to protect our heritage. And this is one of those pieces that those of us who have been working very much in the granulated areas of downtown Boston do understand. Now, I understand the concerns, and I don't live in Back Bay. I live in West Roxbury, so I do know about the discussions, the lengthy discussions that happened there. It's my understanding that the role of the Public Improvement Commission today is not to put thumbs up or thumbs down whether or not this pipeline should happen, and it's really an extension of existing service to other parts of the city that would be underserved without it. And in fact, if this extension did not happen, it's my understanding that the other areas around Back Bay, including the architectural district, would have limited service of natural gas because of that. It would deplete the pressure. Now, again, I'm not an authority. I don't claim to be, but I have been really trying to understand this issue in our neighborhood. It's an important one. We looked at sewer coverage. We looked at transportation. We looked at wind. We looked at shadow. This is very important, and I do not take in any way the community activists and they're concerned. I have a 16-year-old as well. We're all concerned about this. My godmother lives in Pasadena, California. It's very frightening. But we also, must acknowledge that there are certain underlying infrastructure aspects that we don't have additional technology to make up for it. I think that the goals are there. I've seen a lot coming out of Mayor Walsh's office that really pushes the envelope on this. And sometimes it's frightening for the business community. I represent the business community. But, people are on board to improve the infrastructure and to migrate this type of technology into future development. But I do strongly encourage you to approve this extension. Thank you. Where's the clapping?
Hi, my name's Claire Miller. I live in Jamaica Plain. My grandfather immigrated to Jamaica Plain in 1860. Not my grandfather, my great-great-grandfather. I'm the lead community organizer with Toxics Action Center and a co-convener of Mass Power Forward, the statewide coalition. And I urge the commission to delay your decision. These are complicated times. This is not the same type of proposal that you could just make a decision on 10, 20, 30 years ago. We have to draw a line in the sand. We literally have to stop doing things the way we've been doing them. We have to stop and consider really, really hard, is there another way to do this? In 2018, less than a month from now, we're only gonna be 32 years away from 2050. We need to not be burning anything in that time. I'm only 32 years old, and I can tell you that a lot of my peers, we're like, we don't wanna have kids. Like, it's too uncertain, it's too scary. It literally breaks my heart. This project hasn't gotten approval from the Department of Public Utilities. If the DPU were serious about following our statewide Global Warming Solutions Act, they won't approve it. It is not in line with getting our state and following our laws. So please delay your decision, think about how complicated this is, and let's get into the weeds together. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Stephen Wischke, and I'm a resident of Brighton now and previously South Boston. I have a brain injury, so this may come out a little like drawn out, but it's gonna come out either way. What's happening with people, not people, but what you're doing by approving this, you're saying, yeah, it's okay to take a step back in front of all of this evidence that climate change is real, is happening, and we have Marty Walsh over here saying that, oh, Boston's gonna be a clean energy city soon, but at the same time he's still on board with something like this, which is dirty energy, and it's going to be decades and decades of dirty energy. I don't know, I shouldn't have came up here. I didn't have anything prepared, and I just felt strongly that this board can't approve this job or this whatever it is. I don't know. I'm against it. That's all I know. All right, then.
Hi, good morning. My name is Dave Hewitt. I'm a principal
at the firm of Epsilon Associates. Epsilon is a company that specializes in environmental engineering and with a particular niche involved in Article 80 permitting here in the city through the BPDA and also through the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, MEPA, and their greenhouse gas policy. In my experience in working in Article 80 and MEPA for the past 15 years, here in the city, the great majority of new developments do rely on natural gas. And to receive their Article 80 approval, now under Article 37, the green buildings, they're required to show that the building would be capable of being LEED certifiable. In order to get the necessary energy credits to be LEED certifiable, the great number of projects need to rely on natural gas. Because right now, in the present, to rely on an all-electric building for heating and for domestic hot water simply is not as efficient and in fact creates more greenhouse gas than does one that uses energy-efficient gas boilers on site. So you have a situation where the city, through the BPDA and those projects that go through state environmental review and their greenhouse gas policy are moving buildings and encouraging them to do so. In fact, saying you probably can't get your permits unless you're using natural gas. And to deny this pipeline would be, a lot of people here have said earlier that it would flies in the face or goes against logic. Perhaps in the future it would when as a society we move towards greater and greater renewables, and I am personally and professionally in favor of that. Epsilon is involved in offshore wind and solar and all those things. But I think we have to talk about the situation where we're in today and that you cannot, as a city, be approving projects and pointing them in one direction and then yanking the rug out from under them on another. In just one example that we looked at of a major building, we found that it would actually produce 16% more greenhouse gas per year to have an all-electric building relying on the grid than it would be to use natural gas. So I'd just like the Commission to consider those facts and deal with the situation we're in the present. And while I'm entirely sympathetic to the concerns we've heard today, the reality is that this pipeline is a needed extension of existing service of a product that most every citizen of Boston relies on. Thank you.
My name's David Ludlow, and I'm primarily with 350 Mass, which is part of several coalitions which represent a hell of a lot of people. Now, I'm not speaking for those organizations because what I'm going to say is a little bit over the top, all right? I'm going to ask us to look at the politics. Why is the mayor saying one thing the day before Election Day and now he's not doing anything? We're going to need you gentlemen, and we're going to need other city councilors than Councilor Jackson to take on the mayor. Now, the mayor is doing the best he can. I understood that the mayor felt he had to support capital punishment, even though he's personally opposed to it, because he'd lose federal funding if he didn't support capital punishment, right? Now, his job is to fund all of our needs. He has to do that, and it appears to me that he's under the gun. He's wavering because there's a lot of actors here, a lot of national actors here that can hurt our funding. He does what he has to do, but he can only do the right thing in this case if he gets a lot of support, if people really help him to do the right thing. I know from doing civil disobedience, one of being hundreds of people doing civil disobedience in Roxbury, that I followed that struggle very closely. I learned a lot about what's going on here. And what I learned was that Senator Markey and Senator Warren opposed the other company, what was it called? The other, not just Spectra, but Kinder Morgan. They opposed Kinder Morgan. They said token things to get away with not opposing Spectra. And the reason that they did that, many political observers believe, was that it goes back to the United States must support, the federal mandate is we must export energy. That was important to our national security. Germany's going to go get their energy from Russia if we don't give them fracked gas. Now that fracked gas has to come from somewhere, right? Kinder Morgan was, already partially defeated. Spectra was out of the gate, and Spectra they made the home run. Spectra got home. They made it. We got that pipeline established. Now the reason for that gas was to sell gas to Europe, because it's part of our strategic initiative. It's part of our strategic initiative to maintain our superiority over the world. And the only way we're going to do that is if we don't lose, America's going down, and our economy's about to tank. I won't go any further saying a lot of over-the-top controversial things. I'll get to the point. The mayor can't do the right thing because of strategic initiatives, because of pressures, because of corporate pressures, because of how we're all run by giant corporations. And we're only going to change that if people are courageous. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andy Bean. I'm a campaign coordinator with Boston Climate Action Network, and I looked up on the wall to do a time check, and it looks like the clock there hasn't been updated for daylight savings time. So in this room, we're back a couple months, but the statements that I've been hearing from some of the industry representatives make me feel like we're back a few decades or maybe more. We all know that climate change is real. We all know that we need to be building infrastructure that is ready to mitigate the impacts of climate change and is ready to deal with the impacts of sea level rise and all the rest. We shouldn't be looking at projects based on how they work exactly today or 10 years ago using that logic, but how they fit into the vision of Boston into the future. Now, there's a lot of us here who do not want to see this pipeline built. We don't want to see more fossil fuel infrastructure built in the city of Boston. And I can tell you that we can make your job a lot easier. We can keep these hearings a lot shorter if you do the right thing. If you stop building with fossil fuels, these can be wrapped up pretty darn quickly. But on the other hand, if there's going to be more fossil fuel infrastructure proposals, and just know that we're going to be coming back, and there's going to be more of us. Maybe you might have to move to a bigger room. So expect us in the future. There's going to be more and more and more of us, because we know that fossil fuels are the thing of the past, and we're ready to move into the future.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for convening this important hearing. My name is Dr. Karen Weber. I'm with Foundation for a Green Future and Stop the West Roxbury Lateral Pipeline. I just want to take one very important point. Health. Not only is the greenhouse gas emission important, but our health is important. I would like to ask whether any one of you would like this gas in your home. Once you know that what fracked gas contains in terms of toxic chemicals, the levels of radiation, I don't think you want your children, your wives, yourselves, your parents, anyone breathing it. So it behooves my imagination that you want to put this gas in one of the high-end neighborhoods of our city, where you have very expensive real estate in apartments, condos, hotels, your businesses. People start getting really sick. Already you've done it to West Roxbury, but if we start seeing what happens in the Back Bay, then what are you going to say? So I just want to bring it back to health and yourselves. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, here we are again. My name is James Michel. I am a co-founder of the Boston Clean Energy Coalition. I come to that work out of the West Roxbury lateral pipeline fight, and I am rocking my Resist the Pipeline shirt today. We advocates have a big tent. I'm not going to belabor. You get the point. We're saying climate change is real. We need to deal with it. I think we have been trying to deal with you all in good faith and are starting a process. I don't understand what the rush is. I'm very frightened that you have given us signals that you are going to basically, on the technical sort of, it does no harm, that they're not going to disrupt gas mains or whatever, vote today and approve this. Is that your intention? It's a question.
We're still going through the testimony, and we have some questions for National Grid following the questions you guys have asked this morning.
Okay. So one of my big questions is, what is the rush? Why on earth? You have represented to us, I believe in good faith, that you would honor the spirit of the City Council resolution. It was even mentioned at the last hearing. Why not give us more time? We've got kind of this, the obvious concern about climate change. We're also sponsoring a hearing, supporting a hearing Monday in the City Council that is going to look at zero carbon buildings. That is the future. We're not just against frack gas pipelines, we're also for building net zero buildings. We need time to develop that. We all know that. And we need time really to look at the particulars of this project. It looks to us like its main justification is we want to get greater pressure so that we can feed high-rise buildings in the Back Bay and South End. Why don't we start really looking at less dramatic solutions? Give us time. We'll hire the technical folks. We'll get in the weeds. We're committed to this. I urge you, pause this process. Thank you.
So following up on some of the issues that have been raised, I think starting with a question that Mr. Humphrey asked, can you walk us through, and Mr. Carroll, you started with this, but the justification for this particular investment?
Sure. It's not a pause, I'm just moving closer to the microphone. As mentioned, we are a low-pressure entity in the city of Boston. We rely on the IP Boston Loop to provide natural gas to all the gas customers, both residential and commercial, not only in Boston, but across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Those numbers up around 860,000 folks that have decided to use and now operate natural gas. Within the area of the Back Bay, as looped in, that IP loop does not exist right now. There is no other infrastructure to provide any backup for the low pressure going into that area. That low pressure is constantly being sought on because without any advertisement or any other efforts, there is demand coming in for use of natural gas. In order to supply that natural gas and in order to provide consistent delivery of natural gas, that is that IP loop going in the back. As mentioned, it's a low pressure area. Some of the other areas coming in now looking to develop 2 pounds or more require more than what we have in the low pressure system.
And to the question which was simply just asked, what is the urgency? Why do you want to be able to do this right now?
As noted in terms of the construction schedule, it's looking at 15 months just to begin. The building in question now is already up, is going up and continuing to go up from that end. So in terms of meet that demand for what they are looking for, that is that requirement in terms of starting. In terms of again, as I mentioned previous, that IP loop is also stabilizing that system in the area.
And then just to Mr. Michel's question, to Ms. Manson-Cohen's question, what is the impact on folks who currently are being served by National Grid if you do not, if you were not to do this particular investment?
In terms of not putting that structure, it comes back to what that demand is on that low pressure area from that end. So it does impact any other economic development, as stated earlier, heard in some of the comments, in terms of other activities increasing in that area, or else converting over from whatever fuel that they have in terms of going. That will not allow anything else from that end. But it's also the existing customers on the line. It is coming in, again, this customer looking, that has to be on that end. I know there's some other activities going on and around the city in terms of other road improvements from that end, and this will bolster any other efforts to assist with delivery of natural gas to existing gas customers.
And to a question that was raised by Ms. Huffman, can you talk through how you're approaching safety both during the construction and post-construction, where this project can move forward?
Within, and if I could kind of expand on that a little bit in terms of what National Grid is with safety. If you were to look at the operations that we have out in the field right now, in terms of the work site safety, in terms of the internal departments across our footprint that we currently serve, all the employees working in there, it's not only the safety of the folks in and around, whether it's gas main replacements that we have an aggressive schedule on about replacing. You would heard that we are working with groups that have been speaking here with regard to gas leaks and going after those. It's also at the safety of pedestrian vehicular traffic going on, as well as I mentioned, underground. There's a lot of infrastructure in that area that we are addressing and looking at. We have to maintain coverage and safety in terms of when we put that in, and is not impacting from that end. There was a question about construction schedules in terms of what is the months of work. There is moratoriums. The city, with good weather, as we're going in terms of getting more pipe out, if we're only looking at a 6-month window, 8-month window, really, from November to, say, February, March, you're reducing that activity for us to do replacement going in. You add in a lot of other things with weather, rain, you're not excavating. If you look at all the other activities across the neighborhoods and in the city that might impact any type of construction going on, so those numbers reduce. When the weather allows for us to go, it's still going in a construction and digging. As you move into the winter months, when you get the snow and the rain, that's when you get the frost below. That's when all the permits are really stopped in that one. It's more of an emergency response to that degree. So that really is in terms of the scheduled process.
From the analysis that Ms. Camargo had done and that Mr. Riley had mentioned, they've identified some additional leaks that are in this corridor. I just want to be clear that we actually now have that information now. We will gladly share that with you.
I would hope that, as we said, we operate 24 hours, 7 days a week. We have a call center. Any and all, we respond to any and all type of odor complaints. It varies from whether it's our product or not. We respond to it all. So I'd hope that they would call in. I believe they mentioned they might have called in a grade 1. In terms of the equipment they use, I'm not familiar what they're using. It could differ from how we're using it. But again, any type of an odor, just call it in from that. I will gladly take the items that were delivered here and get back to whether yourself, and I believe we are involved with the Mothers on Front group, and we can get back to them as well.
Great. And just to confirm that if this were to move forward, you would be fixing any leak that would be in the right-of-way that you would be working on?
Correct.
Okay. And then a couple questions have been raised around the relationship between National Grid and the DPU.
So as mentioned, when it wasn't a pause, I just want to share with my colleagues to speak, but it sounds like it's just me speaking. With regard to the Department of Public Utilities, we are mandated to follow procedures set forth by them in terms of any type of construction in the field and how we construct, how we build, how we monitor. So every project does not need to go before them in terms of gas main replacements, in terms of gas services. From that end, I mentioned the inspectors because they too can stop by any job, ask for any job brief. That goes through the safety, that goes through the work zone activity, and that goes through from the job completion on that end. So not all jobs that are being performed have to go before the DPU. If you're looking at the number of services that we do, the number of replacement mains that we do, to go before them on every single item, I'm not sure they would have the time to do that. And again, we are following everything that's mandated from the DPU about any type of activity, from the material, from the work zone activity, to the type of activity that we do in the work zone itself from that end. Everything's reported. They can come in and ask any type of question they want from that.
Other questions or comments from members of the commission? No. Amir Todd. All right, and just to confirm, they have all necessary approvals. Is that correct? I think we have one other member of the public. Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is Cam Wilson. I couldn't hear what he said about why the rush, and it seemed like an awfully short answer. And for me, I would very much like for someone else in the audience to speak with him, debate the reasons for the rush.
Mr. Grau, can you speak again to sort of why you're pursuing this project right now on the timeline that you're proposing?
As mentioned, this will be a long-term project, 15-month going through with the season. The current building that is being served is currently on its way, being constructed and up. In terms of getting that delivery of natural gas to that is a very important part of that, reaching that timeline. If you continue, if there's a continued delay and you start moving into where it's next year, again, that building will be up with no service.
I'm just going to put back to you in terms of the rush. If in fact you approve this project today, then any public discussions we have are really a sham. It abrogates our ability to discuss alternatives, both at the policy, sort of climate change, carbon neutrality level, but even, you know, we are just beginning to kind of dig into, are there other ways that these buildings could be served? So what is the rush? We have a public meeting scheduled January 16th. Why do you need to approve this? Why do they need approval today?
For approval today, we have sought through and went through the procedure. Now, when the PIC ends this year, where's the process going forward on that? So that's in terms of that question from that. In terms of where it is, if you move into January and where is the end point from that? What we're asking for is a main extension that is typically done throughout the city. It is bringing a supply into that area. It is trying to go and do construction now by getting all the material, getting the contractor on, maintaining that, getting all the necessary permits, and working through any other activity that is being performed in and around that area. So there is no, if some of the other buildings are doing their own maintenance out that way, there might be some other buildings performing work that would impact any other activity that would be performed out there. So in terms of trying to coordinate what we're trying to do with whatever else is planned, and that could be long-term, then there is an impact on that.
So what about the steam pipe that is coming towards those buildings? Why couldn't we use that?
I'm not the customer, sir. I said I do not operate the steam. I not know what equipment they have purchased. I'm not quite sure in terms of where the conversations are going, but if that entity were to already pre-design the building, has gone through the design process, has gone through all the other meetings within the context of where it was and when that started, and now all that is moving forward in terms of a natural gas equipment, and all that is purchased for that building. I'm not sure where that will fall into any other type of a steam. I am not in that position to respond as to what they cannot provide.
What you're providing is based upon what has been approved for the building which is being built.
Correct.
Right.
Sorry, can I just ask a clarifying question? I think he talked about the DPU doesn't have to approve every pipeline, but the question that I had was that the financing has not been approved by the DPU. And so a question regarding that, please? Thanks.
Sure.
So the question is in regard to that. So there is a cost benefit in terms of bringing that product out there to maintain our low-pressure system in line. So there is that cost that the company is pursuing as well. Then there is, as I mentioned at the beginning, if there was a home and it has occurred where there's no gas main on that street, and they elect to go natural gas, then they would have to pay for that product. They would have to pay for all the piping going in from that main extension to the service and to the home. So that is done from that in terms of where the rates are, what the cost is per that, and then it applies into how the costs are going back and forth, but the customer is paying a substantial amount in that.
Your question was, has the financing plan been approved for this particular project?
As far as I believe the AG has involved us in it, I have not been a party of that conversation. I have not been involved in that conversation. I can get that answer back from that, but in terms of the project going forward, this is the part of electing us or asking for the approval going through a PIC position in terms of the infrastructure in the streets, following all the protocols from that, and asking to go forward on that.
Yes, just a clarification. My name is Paul Horn from West Roxbury. It was difficult to hear the National Grid spokesman at all times. Could I ask for a brief clarification? For the building in question, 1 Dalton Street, I believe, does National Grid have a contract to provide gas to that building by a certain date, a contract or any kind of legal agreement, by which date, if it does not provide the gas, there will be penalties, financial penalties for National Grid? Can you explain, further describe the nature of that agreement?
I do not have that information. I'm not trying to avoid the question. If I can get someone in the audience, I'm glad to have, but anytime that we, if a customer or an individual wishes to connect to natural gas, first we have to look at the system in general. If the system cannot allow it, from that, then we say that we have to do that main extension from that end. For us going forward, there's always been that conversation in terms of how they're doing it, and since the billing's going up and the products, the equipment is being purchased, there is a contract that we're looking to do to perform that. In terms of what the schedule is from that, I would imagine that the billing's probably looking to be completed within a certain time frame, and delivery of natural gas so that that equipment can be used to heat. I'm sure there's restaurants there that elect to use natural gas from that will allow it to be open, and from hot water for any other residents in that end. So, again, that's where we are looking to perform that right now.
Thank you. In the absence of that information and further unanswered questions, I do join others in exhorting the Commission to allow a delay in its decision so more information can be gathered, more review can be taken. Thank you.
So within the field, within the activity that was requested, trying to get the permitting through in terms of all the other entities in the street, about installing a gas line within those areas, about confinement within those, about finding a void, as we've gone through for a period of time to get that from both the city, the state, and other entities. And they have provided all the information to the board in terms of all the work that we have performed, and there is access within that area.
So, again, I sort of want to go through where we are in the process and to many of the things that have been raised about the role of the Public Improvement Commission within this, which, as has been noted, we are one of many stakeholders in this process, and that the role essentially of this body really is specific to the engineering decisions and changes made to the public right-of-way and the impact that has on other folks who have grants of location that have already been established. As one part of that, I just want to reconfirm that we have sign-offs from all of the participating or all the other stakeholders. Okay. And I know that one of those stakeholders was Veolia, and that their approval was contingent on a number of very specific things, which they put into a letter dated December 6th. And I just want to make sure that the National Grid team agrees to all the contingencies that Veolia has put in place.
Yes, there is something that will have to be determined, once the construction begins, but yes.
And that, just for the third time, it is of great importance to the city that you are addressing all the gas leaks that are in the public right-of-way, and that you will address any gas leak in the public right-of-way that this project comes near as part of the approval if we approve this process. Okay. And that, sort of as has been said, and I appreciate Mr. Michel's point, there is a number of community conversations which need to happen, amount of community dialogue that would need to happen for this project. One of the things would certainly be a website which you would maintain that would give residents of the Back Bay and other interested parties regular information about the project, about the status of the project, about the impact it would have on the Back Bay.
Along with any schedule, depending on where this permit moves forward, it will be scheduled, and that will be part of all the conversation going forward.
Okay. And that, as has been mentioned, there are a set of community conversations co-sponsored between the city and first the Back Bay Association, and then second the Neighborhood Association of the Back Bay. I believe the dates are January 10th and January 16th. That National Grid would be at, and in response to the many issues that have been raised today, those community conversations would be both about the specifics of this project, but also about overall what National Grid is doing as a utility company to lower emissions and improve sustainability both in the city and across the world.
Yes, that was part of whatever going forward on that. As for mentioned, we have and still are and will continue to be active with a lot of groups that spoke today. National Grid is also very active within the Green Ribbon, both in the climate change, not only in the state of Mass, but in the other territories, as well as a strong voice across the country in terms of AGA, where that topic is being elevated to the point. There's discussion about the technologies, and we're very strong in terms of that conversation.
And just to make sure that those meetings would be as productive as possible, we would want to be able to receive questions from the public in advance, as well as obviously at the meetings, but questions from the public in advance to make sure that National Grid was fully prepared to be able to answer any questions that the public had.
We'll try to answer any and all questions.
Okay, but you'll be open to receiving questions from us and from the public in advance of those conversations? Okay, all right. I feel confident that I speak for the commission in this. We are deeply appreciative of the passion and empathize with the interest that each one of you has brought. The time and the testimony you have given over all of these public hearings has been really sort of reflects obviously the depth to which you care about our city and care about the globe and care about the future that we have in front of us. That is exactly why, as has been referenced from everybody from Ms. Brooks in the beginning to Mr. Bean at the end, the mayor is pushing forward on the carbon-free Boston plan, which is the longitudinal look or the longer look at the policies and programs that the city is embarking on to be able to achieve so many of the things that so many of you testified to. But given the purview of the Public Improvement Commission, which again is really about the engineering decision around the right-of-way and the impact that would have on some of the other folks who have been already granted grants of location through the PIC process. I will entertain now a vote to approve the proposal by National Grid contingent on the things which we've talked about, the community process, fixing of the gas leaks, the contingencies that were enumerated in Veolia's letter, as well as the other things that were discussed during this process.
Make a motion to approve a petition by National Grid for a grant of location to install new gas main infrastructure within the following public ways in Boston proper and Roxbury, as read into the record by the chair, and is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Grant of Location Plan, National Grid Back Bay IP Main Extension, Boston, 21 sheets dated December 1st, 2017.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Moving on to the second item. So the first segment was approved. We're now talking about the second segment, which is of this particular project. So the second item is on a petition by National Grid for a grant of location to install new gas main infrastructure within the following public ways in Boston proper. This was new business on October 19th, 2017. This was had its first public hearing on November 2nd, 2017. Had its public hearing continued on November 16th, 2017. The locations are Stewart Street, generally between Huntington Avenue and Clarendon Street, Clarendon Street between Stewart Street and Stanhope Street, Stanhope Street between Clarendon Street and Berkeley Street, Berkeley Street generally between Stanhope Street and Cortez Street. This is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, grant of location plan, National Grid Back Bay IP main extension, Boston, 16 sheets, dated December 1st, 2017.
Thank you, through the chair. With regard to this, again, this is starting at Berkeley is where our existing IP station is, the 22-pound system. That is the beginning of the project, bringing the IP loop into the Back Bay. We are bringing that IP loop into the Back Bay for continued service in terms of the existing low-pressure main out in and around that area for the existing customers around that, probably roughly around 2,000 plus within that area. The continued economic growth that seems to be occurring in that needed the IP reinforcement to both low pressure as well as what's going. With the existing One Dalton coming up in terms of that customer, that service is being provided within that area. Since the low pressure is roughly a quarter pound, this building itself is looking to operate within a 2-pound system, which would provide natural gas to their equipment going in from that aspect. So this is part of the first phase going through. We have performed a number of test holes out there to confirm that there is a conduit being allowed for us to place that gas line in there. In coordination with those test holes, we have been involved with all the entities underground. There are many out there. We have worked within that area, and we have confidence in terms of all the conversations with them that they are approving in terms of what we're looking at. Obviously, any other work that we're doing out during construction will include a lot of communication with them. As mentioned, the underground of the city streets are much busier than above ground, so things plotted, which is why we do some test excavation holes. So any types of other items that might hinder or cause a deviation from left to right or from that end will be coordinated within that aspect so that we do not impact any of the economic development, any of the businesses out that way. Within this total process, as mentioned at the beginning of this formal procedures, we will provide a website. We will provide all the technology, and not technology, but all the updates in terms of schedules. Within that area working, it is a very delicate area. I'm certainly not looking like a road in one of the other areas, whether it's in the city or not. So the limits in terms of the work will be limited, so we should be able to kind of foresee a couple of weeks where we are and continuously update. We do have someone on staff that is going to monitor and maintain all that. We will continue to update through all the associations that we will be meeting with in January, as well as through the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services from that end. Barring any other events that are going in there or any other activities that are looking for us to not work during that time, that might impact the schedule. But from that end, I can turn it over to Paul DiLorenzo to update you on that section going from Berkeley and ending at Stewart.
Yeah, as we spoke to this morning, that section is shown in green right now. We are picking up our existing IP main at the intersection of Berkeley Street and Cortez. That route, as I mentioned this morning, does run through Stanhope Street, Clarendon Street, and along Stewart Street. That's roughly about 2,400 lineal feet worth of pipeline. It ends basically the corridor at the I-90 tunnel, and that's where we'll pick up essentially segment 1, which continues the route to Dalton Street.
Again, for the purpose of this hearing, you have approval from Mass DOT. Can you amplify your comments which you gave for the first hearing as to the approvals which you have received from Mass DOT in terms of attaching the pipes underneath the I-90 tunnel?
We have received the approval to move forward from Mass DOT that came in about a week and a half ago from Joe Rigney. The design as it's currently laid out right now shows two 12-inch steel gas mains They actually head off just prior to entering the tunnel, and we'll be running two 12-inch across that corridor.
And during any and all construction, obviously within the sensitive areas of that, they will be fully involved with us from a construction standpoint.
So your construction sequence will start from which side? From the Turnpike side or from the One Dalton side?
It would, depending on what's allowed in terms of the permitting and some of the, whatever comes or stems from the community hearings. As for mentioned, there is a timeline in terms of when this building will be completed and when the energy would be provided to provide heat, hot water, and cooking. So again, we'll leave it out in terms of what the public process will allow, if in fact we could start at both ends from that end. But it would be, we would have to complete obviously the entire project for that. But that is where, in terms of understanding the IP loop within the city, that is where we would be picking up, and really the gas would be provided from that, going the IP loop and ending at One Dalton.
Other questions or comments? Amy or Todd? Members of the public? Mr. Carl, I know that you mentioned this in your opening remarks, but to be clear, if we are to vote for this, you agree to all the terms that Veolia had in their contingent approval letter from December 6th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we were in receipt of that, and from that, reading into it and seeing that there may be some other actually in-field involvement, from that end. So that's where we're looking forward to engaging them as we're going through.
And you agree to fix any gas leaks that are in the right-of-way that you guys are working on in the course of this project?
Yes, yes. And as earlier in the agenda one, there was an item of some odor where they were determined, and I'll take a copy from Amy and show where it is, and I'll report back to Amy in terms of that.
And you agree to maintain a website throughout the duration of this project that would ensure that residents or other interested parties knew what the project was, where it was in its status, and could give feedback and interact with National Grid.
Yes, yeah, we'll continue that, as well as engage in the associations, the three that were met, Back Bay, St. Petolf, and NAB, in terms of any type of notifications or any other questions that come from them during construction.
Okay, and to that point, you agree to present and be present at and to respond to all community questions provided before or at the January 10th and January 16th
Yes.
meetings that we're co-hosting with NAB and with the Back Bay Association.
Yes, we will have my fellow colleagues, project manager, engineer, as well as the individuals that are much deeper, or I'll rephrase that, are deeper involved with all the climate activities, the climate conversations that are occurring not only in the city of Boston, but in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as well as from a much larger voice across the natural gas footprint from the state, country actually.
With those contingencies as part of the approval, I'll entertain a motion on this particular item.
I'll make a motion to approve a petition by National Grid for a grant of location to install new gas main infrastructure within the following public ways in Boston proper, as read into the record by the chair and is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Grant of Location Plan, National Grid Back Bay IP main extension, Boston, 16 sheets dated December 1st, 2017.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The next item is on a joint petition by Madison Milnia Cass LLC and the Boston Redevelopment Authority for the discontinuance of any and all rights to travel the public may have had within a portion of Brook Marshall Road, a public way in Roxbury, from Sojourner Truth Court to a point approximately 225 feet northwesterly. This was new business on October 5th, 2017, and had its first public hearing on October 19th, 2017. This is as shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Highway Discontinuance Plan, Madison Park Village, Brook Marshall Road, one sheet, dated October 5th, 2017.
Sophia Transtamar from Madison Park Development Corporation. I'm here with our engineer, Bill Doyle, and we're before the committee today to come forth as it relates to the discontinuance of Brook Marshall Road. We received comments, incorporated those comments into the plan, and here if you have any questions.
Amy, for the purpose of this hearing, have all the comments or concerns that were raised prior to this hearing that have been taken care of?
Yeah, it was street lighting and everything that needed to happen at the BRA.
Has been done.
Can you, as we've been through this before, we have a number of items that are coming up. Can you just give us sort of the overall view of the project at hand that you guys are working on in this area?
Sure. Again, Madison Melnia Cass Apartments. It's located at 600 Melnia Cass Boulevard, 60 units of housing, and it's with the Whittier Choice Neighborhood Initiative grant. We needed to come before the committee to request this discontinuance because our development essentially will be on the discontinued portion of Brook Marshall Road in an effort to start construction and comply with the HUD CNI grant.
And since this is a public hearing, one of you need to articulate for today's hearing the limits. You need to amplify a little bit more about the area of the discontinuance.
Okay, yes, sir. Okay. Bill Doyle, Doyle Engineering. So well, you can see it. You've got copies. The current road, the current Brook Marshall Road comes through this existing right-of-way, and actually it's actually the Melnia Cass right-of-way that comes to this portion here. And Brook Marshall Road comes and extends this way, connects to Sojourner Truth, and then connects to Melnia Cass. What the request is to discontinue this portion of the roadway. The property needed for it essentially makes up that right-of-way, gets discontinued, and then the proposed project extends out. And this is generally that area. The proposed project extends out into that discontinued.
And I believe it's about 11,700 square feet of actual road.
And again, for the record, Street Lighting Division within Public Works has responded to the adequacy of you removing the lighting conduits out from that area?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, we looked at that, and we looked at how the circuits would need to reconnect in order to regain lighting here.
Who is going to undertake that work?
That will be contractor.
So the lighting work will be done by your contractor?
Right, in compliance with the street lighting divisions.
Please ensure that you coordinate with the Street Light Division of the Public Works Department to ensure that when such work is being done, it is being inspected by them and certified by them when the work has been done.
Yes.
Thank you.
And you've mentioned this before, but just to confirm, the northern extent of your project sort of meets up with the southern extent of the Boston Transportation Department's current planning effort around Melnia Cass?
The work that's happening in Melnia Cass, yes, we've been coordinating, actually, they've been into many of the meetings with us, we've been coordinating closely with them, and how we're leaving this is kind of stubbed out so that they can't come by and do their work. We looked at the opportunity of trying to do some of that work under this and then doing some of the work of that, but it makes sense to, as we've shown it here, and working with the work of you all, is to leave it as we show it here with a kind of a raised area so that fire access can get through with the gate. No, so it's
kind of spilling over into our next item.
Other questions or comments from the commission on the discontinuance? No. Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion on the discontinuance.
I'll make a motion to approve a joint petition by Madison Melnia Cass LLC and the Boston Redevelopment Authority for the discontinuance of Brook Marshall Road as read into the record by the chair and is shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Highway Discontinuance Plan, Madison Park Village, Brook Marshall Road, one sheet dated October 5th, 2017.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. The next item is on a petition by Madison Melnia Cass LLC for the making of specific repairs within the following public ways in Roxbury, consisting of curb realignment and sidewalk reconstruction, as well as new and relocated street trees, street lights, irrigation infrastructure, storm drain infrastructure, traffic control infrastructure, and driveway curb cuts. Melnia Cass Boulevard at address number 600 between Sojourner Truth Court and Brook Marshall Road. Brook Marshall Road, southwest of Melnia Cass Boulevard, Sojourner Truth Court, southwest of Melnia Cass Boulevard. This was new business on October 5th, 2017, and had a public hearing on October 19th, 2017. This is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Specific Repair Plan, Madison Melnia Cass Apartments, Brook Marshall Road, Sojourner Truth Court, Melnia Cass Boulevard, 4 sheets dated November 13th, 2017.
So again, Sophia Chance-Tamara from Madison Park Development Corporation. We are before the committee again to discuss or present our changes, incorporate comments that we've received into the plans. And again, this is for a development, Madison Melnia Cass Apartments, part of Whittier Choice Neighborhood Initiative, 60 units of affordable housing along Melnia Cass Boulevard. The specific repairs that you are reviewing directly relate to the actual discontinuance portion of Brook Marshall Road that we previously discussed.
And I can walk through it. So we'll go through it in some detail. We have some laws of the different areas, but Brook Marshall Road, as we identified earlier, is essentially the western side. Northern side is the new discontinued area here. So we'll basically be abutting, Melnia Cass proper, and then Sojourner Truth Court. So the improvements, the public improvements are essentially the sidewalks, street trees, street lights, and everything along this edge. We're basically maintaining there's a mound essentially out in Melnia Cass now. We're maintaining that with the exception of what you'll see on this plan and subsequent plans, some landscaping. But we're proposing a walkway to connect the development to Melnia Cass, and we'll work with the city to come up with that configuration. And then again, Sojourner Truth Road, sidewalk, tree pits, street trees, street lighting, fire hydrants also addressed here. The two things from Sojourner and from Brook Marshall, there's 2 curb cuts that will be entering the site into essentially what's a parking court that happens here.
Just a point of clarity as relates to the portion of what is known as, unofficially known as the Melnia Cass berm. We are maintaining as much as possible, and we've also gone and received our approvals from the Parks and Recs department as far as those trees in the areas that are maintainable during construction.
So to add to that, I have three different laws. We'll start with the Melnia Cass edge first. We did work with the city and the Parks and Rec and trees and everyone to come up with the 2 major things coming from the site, between the site and Melnia Cass, right at the roadway of Melnia Cass. We're essentially maintaining certain trees and providing additional trees after the project's completed. And again, like I said, the walkway. So those are kind of the big moves that occur on the edge of Melnia Cass. So going to the 2 side streets, Brook Marshall and Sojourner Truth. Brook Marshall, again, is just more detailed imagery showing the curb cuts, showing the sidewalks, showing all dimensions, and the improvements that occur here. As I mentioned in the discontinuance in the previous docket item, the connection that comes through here and how that's to be graded, paved, and made to connect for emergency vehicle only from Brook Marshall to Melnia Cass in that interim time period, and that will be gated off so the fire department can get in, but get in and out and regular vehicles cannot. Again, no surprises here on the edge of Sojourner Truth. Redoing sidewalks, street trees, the curb cut coming into the property, and street lighting. We did have a conversation with street lighting. The original circuit did actually come up and go around across the Melnia Cass Market and back down Sojourner. The proposal is to disconnect that, and we've identified on the plan exactly what handholds they need to tie into, what number of handholds they need to tie into. So we understand that more clearly. And again, that's a quick overview of it. We've gone through a lot of details back and forth to make sure we did everything that's been asked of us. Questions?
I think you guys are working on an LMI focused on the wall, the landscaping, the irrigation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and has that been executed yet?
I believe it's been in the process. Our attorney and BPDA's legal counsel working on this particular project have been in conversations as relates to the maintenance of the trees and other landscaping work that's being done in that berm area.
So please understand that the plans will not be recorded until
the LMI
gets
is executed.
So if
right.
you have a desire to have this thing move forward, impress upon your legal team to execute that LMI.
Yeah, we're hoping that we all can
So the
come
ball is
together.
in your court. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. The next thought pattern is any approval, and this is for the commission members, since your specific repair that is being proposed in these plans are subject to the commission approving the next item, which you give us a 1-foot easement. Is that correct? So whichever the vote which we take has to be subjected to the approval of the next item, assuming that the next item gets approved. Okay.
You may have covered this, but given particularly the proximity to what will be cycle tracks on Melnia Cass or improved bike infrastructure on Melnia Cass, how many bike racks are part of you guys think of putting in on the exterior of this project, the roads?
I know that we have for our residents, I believe it's 1-for-1, so it'll be 60 interior storage bike racks. I apologize, but I'm not clear on the visitors, but I know that there are over a handful of visitor exterior bike parking spaces.
As part of the TMP, we can focus on that.
I can provide that in an email for clarity once I get back to the office.
Thanks, Sophia. Other questions or comments? Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion contingent upon, for approval of this contingent upon the approval of the pedestrian easement in the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to approve a petition by Madison Melnia Cass LLC for the making of specific repairs in Melnia Cass Boulevard, Brook Marshall Road, and Sir Joyner Truth Court, as read into the record by the chair, and is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Specific Repair Plan, Madison Melnia Cass Apartments, Brook Marshall Road, Sir Joyner Truth, Melnia Cass Boulevard, 4 sheets dated November 13, 2017.
Second.
With the condition that was read by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Moving on to the public hearing. The first item is on a petition by Madison Melnia Cass LLC for the acceptance of pedestrian easements adjacent to the following public ways in Roxbury: Brook Marshall Road on its southeasterly side, generally between Melnia Cass Boulevard and Rayner Circle; Sojourner Truth Court on its northwesterly side, generally between Melnia Cass Boulevard and Kerr Place. This was new business on November 16th, 2017, and this is as shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Pedestrian Easement Plan, Brook Marshall Road, Sojourner Truth Court, Roxbury, 1 sheet dated November 28th, 2017.
Karen Stamar, Madison Park Development Corporation, and the pedestrian easement came out of our review of the previous specific repair plans that we just discussed, where essentially we're providing a 1-foot easement along Brook Marshall Road and Sojourner Truth Court in an effort to provide a 5-foot travel path on the sidewalks. So, Bill, you want to give a little bit more detail?
Again, Bill Doyle from Doyle Engineering.
So as previously indicated in the earlier, in the docket item before this, the sidewalks on Brook Marshall, the sidewalks on Sojourner Truth, essentially with the existing tree pits there and our proposed tree pits there, does not provide a clear 5-foot travel way behind the tree pit and the edge of property. We needed to add on an extra foot of sidewalk essentially to provide the 5-foot travel way. The current plan, as you see it, if you remember from the early discontinuance being this property here, now that we have this entire property captured for the project, the 1-foot setback occurs along the Brook Marshall edge and the Sojourner Truth edge, interior on property, on the project property, provides that 1 foot and allows us to put the 5-foot sidewalk, the 5-foot clear, concrete clear pathway behind the tree pits.
Questions or comments on the pedestrian easement? Amy or Todd? Please.
Sarah Leong, Mayor's Commission for Persons with Disabilities. We've worked with the development team through the whole process to ensure that a minimum 5 feet of smooth and continuous concrete is provided to help support the increased pedestrian activities around the project. And the team has been receptive to our feedback, and we look forward to the completion of their project.
It's going to be a lovely sidewalk.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve a petition by Madison Milnea Cass LLC for the acceptance of pedestrian easements adjacent to the following public ways in Roxbury, as read into the record by the chair and is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, pedestrian easement, Brook Marshall Road, Sojourner Truth Court, Roxbury, one sheet dated November 28th, 2017.
All in favor? Aye. So moved. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Second item is on a petition by Indigo Block Apartments LLC for the widening and relocation of the existing right-of-way lines of Hillsborough Street, a private way open to public travel in Dorchester, at its southerly terminus, generally at Beckwith Street. This was new business on November 16th, 2017. This is as shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Widening and Relocation Plan, Hillsborough Street, private way open to public travel, Dorchester District, one sheet dated July 20th, 2017.
Good evening. My name is Imad Zurain from Develop Zurain. The proposal under this petition, widening and relocation of the existing private public way, private right of way, in order to allow the construction of a 6-foot accessible sidewalk within the private way. Last time we were before you on the new business, there was a concern about side lighting within the private way. We looked at it. There's actually 4 light poles in the area where we're doing the work. There's a light pole in this location here at the end of Harrow. There's a light pole at the turn of Hillsborough Street. Light pole at the intersection of Groom and Hillsborough, and one diagonally across in this location.
Again, asking a question that might state the obvious, but the property that is adjacent to the parcel that is involved in the widening and relocation is owned by? Thank you, sir.
Other questions or comments on the widening and relocation proposal? Amir Todd, members of the public. All right, I'll entertain a motion on the widening and relocation.
I'll make a motion to approve petition by Indigo Block Apartments LLC for the widening and relocation of Hillsborough Street as read into the record by the chair and shown on the plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Widening and Relocation Plan, Hillsborough Street, private way, open to public travel, Dorchester, District 1, sheet dated July 20th, 2017.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. The next item is on a petition by Indigo Block Apartments LLC for the making of specific repairs within the following public ways in Dorchester, consisting of curb realignment, roadway and sidewalk reconstruction, as well as new driveway curb cuts. East Cottage Street on its southerly side at address number 65, generally west of Norfolk Avenue, Harrow Street as northerly terminus, generally at Beckwith Street. This was new business on November 16th, 2017. This is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Specific Repairs Plan, East Cottage and Harrow Streets, Dorchester, 2 sheets, dated July 20th, 2017.
Imad Zurain from Develop Zurain, the civil engineer. The proposal under this petition is basically to add two new curb cuts into the project, one off East Cottage Street and one off Harrow Street, both commercial driveways, and also the closing of an existing curb cut that currently exists for the existing site, and a complete reconstruction of the sidewalk and curb along the property frontage on East Cottage, as well as sidewalk on Harrow Street as well.
Amy, for commercial sidewalk curb cuts, do we have a higher thickness for the concrete? Yep. So they didn't follow?
Yep.
Thank you.
previously stated in the new business hearing, the project will be required to include the relocation of the water main at the corner as part of the site plan approval process. So that must be shown on the site plan as approved by the site plan, which will be a condition of the approval here.
Amy, what is our standard commercial curb cut width?
So our if you're doing it on an application, it's 24 feet. You can't do higher than that, but when you come to BIC is where we would.
Sorry,
Other questions or comments on the specific repair plan? Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion on the specific repair plan.
I'll make a motion to approve the petition by Indigo Block Apartments LLC for the making of specific repairs within the following public ways in Dorchester, consisting of curb realignment, or as read to the record by the chair, excuse me, East Cottage Street and Harrow Street. As shown on a set of plans entitled the City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division, Specific Repair Plan, East Cottage and Harrow Streets, Dorchester, 2 sheets, dated July 20th, 2017, with the stipulation that the water main relocation be included in the site plan application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you. The next item is on a petition by the trustees of Boston University for the making of specific repairs within the following public ways in Boston proper, consisting of curb, sidewalk, and pedestrian ramp reconstruction, as well as new and relocated specialty pavement, street trees, street lighting, infrastructure, irrigation infrastructure, groundwater recharge infrastructure, and curb cuts. This was new business on November 16th, 2017. The streets are East Newton Street on its northeasterly side at address number 100 northwest of Albany Street, and Albany Street on its northwesterly side northeast of East Newton Street. This is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Specific Repairs Plan, East Newton Street, Albany Street, Boston, 2 sheets, dated October 2017.
Hi, my name is Walt Meisner. I'm the Associate Vice President for Operations, and on this project, I'm the project exec to expand and renovate the Goldman School of Dental Medicine at 100 East Newton Street and on the corner of East Newton Street and Albany Street. Purpose of this project is just to increase the quality of our dental education programs. I'm here with Deb Danick, and we're here to present our case.
Yes, thank you. My name is Deb Danick. I'm with Niche Engineering. I'm project manager and engineer. Sorry for the late addition of that updated plan. You'll notice the only change on that plan is reflective of a comment from the new business hearing, which includes re-looking at the accessible ramps at the corner of East Newton and Albany Street. I can get to that specific detail maybe after I describe the whole project. Okay. So as we presented at the new business hearing, we're here to request modifications to the existing sidewalks abutting our property at 100 East Newton Street. It includes reconstruction of the sidewalk along East Newton Street and Albany Street in front of the project. The existing sidewalk on East Newton Street is approximately 8.5 feet wide, including the granite curb, has a paver strip and cement concrete walkways, and one existing tree. We're proposing to remove the existing tree to install a new minimum 5-foot wide cement concrete sidewalk, new street trees, a pervious paver band, and reset and or provide new granite curb as required along that sidewalk. As part of our approvals, we've already gone to the Parks Commission to have the street tree hearing, and we've had approval for removal of that street tree. With our new proposed street trees, we're also proposing street tree irrigation along East Newton Street. When we work our way around the corner and basically Page North, wrap around the corner, we're going to reconstruct the accessible ramps at that corner near our project site. The existing Albany Street sidewalk is about 13 feet wide, cement concrete with a granite curb. We're proposing to install street trees within that, that sidewalk width, maintain the existing location of the granite curb because we know that the Albany Street corridor has some improvements coming along within the next couple years. The client's also amenable to talking about those changes. We don't anticipate the actual construction of the sidewalk will happen for another couple years. But we've maintained the same location of the curb and worked back from that to install a pervious paver band, street trees, and we ultimately end up with about a minimum of 8.5 feet of cement concrete walkway within the public way. The other thing we're proposing along the Albany Street sidewalk, there's an existing MBTA bus stop that they're actually not using anymore. So we're going to remove that and return it to those that need it. It's one of the J.C. Deco stops, so we're going to return it to them as they want. But it will be out of the way so that there'll be better pedestrian travel through Albany Street.
Since this is the public hearing, and since you cannot take unilateral action, what testimony can you add to the understanding between your client and the MBTA as to the removal of that structure and or the stop?
Yes, so we've already communicated with the MBTA. They have informed us that they no longer need that bus stop, and we have that via email communication. The buses don't stop there. They go a different way because we had proposed relocating this up Albany Street.
You just need to add that to the testimony, otherwise it's disjointed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've coordinated also with J.C. Deco to see if they want us to do something else with this and or replace a stop somewhere else. The other improvements along Albany Street, we are proposing a curb cut, a driveway cut for the loading area, which is kind of on the north side of our site, as well as we will have, and I think I mentioned the street trees, they will also have irrigation. We're also proposing groundwater recharge wells to be located within the sidewalk. We're putting them in kind of the landscape strip as much as possible, but those are needed in order to comply with the Article 32 groundwater recharge requirements. One thing I did not mention, on both streets, there's existing street lights, and we're going to maintain those as much as possible and have coordinated that with the street lighting division. So back to the new plan where I mentioned there was a slight modification to the accessible ramps at the intersection. One of the comments we heard at the intersection of Albany and East Newton Street during our new business hearing was we had looked at the adjacent ramps, so the ramps at Plan Northeast and Southwest, as to whether or not they needed to be reconstructed. So we expanded that to look at the one at the southeast corner. So all 4 ramps have now been evaluated. One is compliant, the other 3 are not, so we will be reconstructing the 3 non-compliant ramps as part of this project as well.
BU currently is maintaining the landscape median on Mass Ave, just around the corner. Where is the status of the maintenance agreements, the LMI for the landscape?
For this particular project, we're going back and forth with Chong Lu on that, with the city legal.
Impress upon completing that thing at your earliest so that it allows the commission members, staff to record these.
Absolutely,
yes. And we appreciate all the work which BU is currently doing to maintaining landscape medians along Mass Ave in this area. We appreciate that. We continue to appreciate that.
And the agreement's going to continue that, yes.
Other questions or comments?
Walt?
Yes, Walt.
So you are the point of contact for BU for this project?
Yes, I'm the project exec.
There is another point of contact listed on the BWSC site plan for this project. It's not you, with the name and phone number. The name escapes me at the minute.
Could it be our OPM, Christy Murphy?
It might be Greg. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's another person.
He's the project manager. He works for me, yes, on this project.
I'd like to just know that who is the point? You are the point of contact for any future concerns. Because I recently left a voicemail with him. We had a moment of panic when there's a lot of construction on the Albany Street corridor, and Laggett McCall is 2 blocks down and recently had some demolition. It was brought to our attention, but it was brought to our attention as this project, erroneously.
Okay. Okay.
So I placed a phone call. It's quite serious. It's not returned. Okay. So I'd just like to know who I should be calling when
the
we
buck
have
stops
concerns.
with me on that. Greg works with me on this project. I assume he might be the one who was listed on that, and there's no excuse for him not to return your phone call. So we'll make sure you have my phone number if you need that.
That would be wonderful.
I will
So-
connect both of you
Yep.
after this hearing.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Amy and John? Members of the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
On the petition by the trustees of Boston University for the making of specific repairs within the following public ways in Boston proper, consisting of curb, sidewalk, and pedestrian ramp reconstruction, as well as new and relocated specialty pavement, street trees, street lighting infrastructure, irrigation infrastructure, groundwater and recharge infrastructure, and curb cuts, is read into the record by the chair and is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Specifics Repair Plan, East Newton Street, Albany Street, Boston, 2 sheets dated October 2017.
Second. All in favor? Aye. So moved. Our next item is also on a petition by the trustees of Boston University for the granting of an earth retention license for the installation of a temporary earth support system within Albany Street, Boston proper, located on its northwesterly side, northeast of East Newton Street. This was new business on November 16th, 2017. And this as shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Temporary Earth Retention Plan, 100 East Newton Street, Boston, 1 sheet, dated August 11th, 2017.
Okay. Walt Meisner from Boston University.
Thank you. I'm Deb Danik with Niche Engineering, project manager and engineer. We're currently requesting a license for temporary earth support as part of this project. As part of the addition and renovation, the project will be constructing a new basement for basically mechanical space for a water meter room along Albany Street. The full basement will be within the property line, but in order to construct the underground building, we request that we can install some temporary earth support within the right-of-way of Albany Street, within the sidewalk. Once it's used and no longer needed in order to hold up the basement as it's being constructed, it will be removed below grade, 7 feet below grade after construction.
Okay. If it is possible, and I'll always seek Mike's guidance on this. The bottom elevation of your basement
Yes.
is here, and your cutoff point for the temporary earth support is higher.
Correct.
Okay? Cut it at least to the bottom level of your basement, so in case if in the future you need utility connections, you're not going to go through your own system. Okay?
Yeah, I'll have to, in all honesty, I'll have to double check with the geotechnical engineer whether or not that could be done in order,
Because
in
you're
safe.
always concerned about you are leaving this stuff underneath.
That makes
So
sense,
just don't use it as a standard practice.
Yeah, I'll pass
because
that on to them as well for future designs. One item that came up as part of the new business hearing was Mr. Nelson requested that we do some video inspection of existing BWC infrastructure in Albany Street prior to the start of our, installation process. So that work has been included in the site plan that's going through BWC review, as well as our construction documents. In vibration monitoring. Thank you. I'll make sure that's there too.
Other questions or comments? Amir Todd, members of the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion on the earth retention license.
I'll make a motion on a petition by the trustees of Boston University for the granting of an earth retention license for the installation of a temporary earth support system within Albany Street, as read into the record by the chair and is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Temporary Earth Retention Plan, 100 East Newton Street, Boston, 1 sheet dated August 11, 2017.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
The next item is on a joint petition by Charter Cross LLC and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation for the making of specific repairs within the following public ways in Boston proper, consisting of sidewalk reconstruction as well as new and relocated specialty pavement, planters, bollards, groundwater recharge infrastructure, and an informational kiosk. Hanover Street on its northwesterly side at address number 198, northeast of Cross Street. Cross Street on its northeasterly side between Hanover Street and Salem Street. Salem Street on its southeasterly side, northeast of Cross Street. This was new business on November 16, 2017, and this is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Specific Repair Plan, Cross Street, 198 Hanover Street, Boston proper, 2 sheets, dated October 20th, 2017. Rebecca.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Rebecca Lee. I'm with the law firm of Mintz-Levin. To my left is Karen Johnson from Charter Realty and Development and Lisa Chow from the firm VHB. We're here on a petition for specific repairs relating to the plaza that is in front of the former Martinetti's building in the North End. This plaza is currently owned by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation and is scheduled to be transferred to the city's stewardship as part of the master conveyance happening related to the Central Artery project. Mark Boyle from the MBTA was unable to be here today, but wrote an email to Amy and Todd fully supporting the petition. We're here before you with some changes to the plans as shown on what was submitted since the last new business hearing as a result of the meeting that PIC staff had with the fire department having to do with access to the facility. So I will let Lisa run through what those changes are, and we can answer any questions that you may have about the project or about the changes.
Good afternoon, members of the Commission. Lisa Chow with VHB. As Rebecca alluded to, PIC staff met with Boston Fire Department after the new business hearing, and they requested the closure of the existing curb cut and replacement of existing curb between the accessible ramps on Hanover Street and Cross Street. I'll point to them on the plan. So it's the closure of this existing curb cut, vertical ramp curb, and the replacement of existing curb between this existing ramp and this existing ramp. Those are the changes that we have incorporated into the specific repair plan that we are presenting for you today.
At your request, the plan also includes where the limit line of any proposed cafe area would be to ensure that there's adequate pedestrian passage way in between that and the curb line of the street.
And just for the record, since new business, the Freedom Trail Commission has met. They were comfortable with the relocation of the Freedom Trail as shown here. Would still like to have final sign-off on the language on the kiosk and to be able to weigh in on the design of the kiosk.
Just a clarifying question. When you say languages to the kiosk, do you want to see the license maintenance indemnification agreement where we've agreed to maintain it?
Sorry, the actual text on the kiosk
text on it.
is something the Freedom Trail Commission wants to be able to, and any associated graphics.
Got it.
Lisa, do you know you have the specifications for the relocated Freedom Trail? The material specifications, do you have that?
We do. There is a detail on the plans that show the city standard.
This plan doesn't show underground utilities, but now that the curb cut is closed, is there any thought to adding additional planters? You can see the two existing planters, but then they end because of that curb cut. But if that goes away, are you going to add additional planters?
I think we had some conversations last time. Apologies, Karen Johnson from Charter Realty and Development. We had some conversations last time about really the most appropriate programming for the plaza. And we stated then, and really in front of the Freedom Trail Commission as well, we believe that there are a number of stakeholders that are interested in the activation of this plaza and the ultimate programming, and whether that's the existing location of the Hubway bikes, obviously the relocated Freedom Trail, our proposed outdoor cafe areas, and the planters. We would like to work with both representatives of NURA, which is the North End Waterfront Residents Association, as well as the North End Beautification Committee, to determine those locations. In having conversations with representatives of NURA, they have some concerns about, for example, outdoor performance spaces. And in having conversations with the North End Beautification Committee, they have some questions about the most appropriate location for outdoor benches and planters. And so we really would like to work cooperatively with all those stakeholders, frankly, and the city, who, and Amy's initiation of the discussion with the fire department really was very helpful in creating a dialogue. So we will continue to cooperate with that, look for the most appropriate locations, and if necessary, come back and show you the ultimate programming.
Yeah, it's some commitments, because this project is spurring the redevelopment of the plaza. So while it is a great idea to coordinate with all the stakeholders to make sure that a proposed plan works for everyone, I think it's appropriate that this project be the sponsor of whatever those, the ultimate plan may be. I don't know if the other commissioners agree with that.
So I think as you have said, Karen, in the past, and to your point, Commissioner Nelson, we would certainly look to you to be a partner, as you've said you want to be, and actually the programming, design, and maintenance of the greater plaza space in front of your property. Is that?
It's acceptable to us, and you know, we have been working with Halverson Design in the past, and I have already reached out to Victor Bronia from NURA and offered to include him in any conversations going forward, as well as Patricia Thibodeau from the North End Beautification Committee. And we clearly will be a sponsor to some extent of some of these initiatives. However, I don't think it's appropriate for us to say that that we should be the primary or sole initiator of this conversation.
I don't think sole, definitely not sole, but primary could be appropriate. After all, we're going to most likely grant a sidewalk cafe for a substantial portion of this plaza to this building. So it's a shared commitment.
I don't think we're disagreeing. I think what
I just want to make it clear for the record.
Yeah, no, we understand. I think that what we're saying is that there needs to be a coordinated planning process, which is starting to come together, of which we will be a member, and we obviously will have a different role in terms of sponsorship or stewardship after the people who are stakeholders, and many of them will be identified by the city, not by my client. And when that's in place and there's consensus that's been developed, then if there are further improvements to be made, we'll be back to you with MassDOT for that, for as long as MassDOT's in the picture, and then there'll be a game plan for how stewardship will be handled. It's just that we're not there today. So we're not disagreeing with your thoughtful comments on the subject.
Lisa? The plaza today, bricks, are they the wire cut or the old Styles and Hart bricks? I don't remember, because there was a point in time when the artery was doing brickwork. We stopped them from using the Styles and Hart, what we call the City Hall paver, and we changed to the wire cut. I don't remember whether this location was done with the wire cut bricks versus the not so suitable City Hall pavers. Do you remember what this one is?
I'm not sure what the existing brick is, but what we're replacing will be the wire cut brick.
Okay. For the whole plaza?
No, just the areas that we are touching.
So we have a concern from an ADA perspective that you can't have two different types, okay? So I apologize for not catching it earlier, but you need to understand, and I'm not talking the whole plaza, but whatever the work which you are doing needs to make sense.
I do believe that they are
Wire cut. Okay, so I'm also hopeful, but if it is not, just look for the consistency in the plaza, okay? Because we are not going to permit two different people coming and tearing up the place.
These are also striped from the central artery in bands.
But it is the, you know, that point in time we got them to change it. Okay, so I just don't remember, and I wish I do, but I don't, as to what got installed over here. Okay.
So, are we retaining the stripes when MassDOT does?
I think that if we're either that or we have to blow the whole thing up, it's going to look pretty scattershot.
Yep. Other questions or comments on this, on the specific repair plan? Any or top members of the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
On a joint petition by Charter Cross Street LLC and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, the making of specific repairs within the following public ways in Boston proper, as read into the record by the chair and is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Specific Repair Plan, Cross Street, 198 Hanover Street, Boston proper, 2 sheets dated October 20th, 2017.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. The next item is on a joint petition by Charter Cross Street LLC and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation for the granting of a projection license for the installation of canopies over portions of the sidewalk within Cross Street, Boston proper, located on its northeasterly side between Hanover Street and Salem Street. This was new business on November 16th, 2017. This is as shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Projection and Canopy License Plan, Cross Street, 198 Hanover Street, Boston proper, one sheet, dated October 20th, 2017.
We thought it would be helpful for you to see a perspective of the building. This is a very modest-sized building. It is not nearly what the as-of-right height is. It's merely a one-story building with a mezzanine level, a very modest-sized building. The canopies that are requested here relate to building entrances, and Lisa can walk you through the particulars.
Again, Lisa Chow with VHB. We are requesting a license for canopy projections along Cross Street. As indicated on the plan, there are currently 4 canopy projections, 3 adjacent to the plaza, that's adjacent to Cross Street, and 1 over Hanover Street and Cross Street. The vertical clearance below the canopies vary, but there is a minimum of 10 feet. Also, the canopies are drained internally.
This is the public hearing. I don't remember the answers which you may have given at the new business. This building is going to be programmed in what type of a use?
The current use is residential and commercial, and it's approximately 10,000 square feet of floor area. And we're proposing to remove the 4-story building at 53 Salem and the 1-story building at 198 Cross Street and replace it with a 1-story building on the entire parcel, totaling, including the mezzanine level, approximately 7,500 square feet for 3 commercial tenants. So the mezzanine level will only be accessed within the same tenant space with ground floor access. So we anticipate the same type of uses that are out there today, which includes cafes, retail, and restaurants.
And the reason why there's a slight difference in sort of how much the canopy actually projects into the public right-of-way. I realize it's a difference of inches, but what was the design decision behind that? The one in the middle sort of projects out, if I'm reading this correctly, about 4.5 feet, or 4.5 feet, and then that gets less and less as you head towards Salem Street.
So it follows the property line.
Bending back.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
And I know this is a separate conversation you're having with BPDA, but what's the current expected height of the kiosk? And how does that compare with the height of the canopies?
The kiosk height is, let me just, I don't want to estimate it. Let me just check that. I believe it's around 14 feet. Let me double check that. I apologize. Keith, do you want to talk about the height of the building or grabbing that?
Keith Jones, Crash Architects, PCA. General height of the building varies because of the slope of the site, but it's approximately 35 across the slope.
Apologies, it's less than 12 feet,
Okay.
the proposed kiosk height.
So somewhat in line with sort of the height of the canopy, both its elevation and then the actual width of it. Okay. Other questions or comments about the projection license?
It does appear to be wire cut brick.
That's what I'm
looking at.
Do you already, okay. All right. On the projection license, anything, no, all right. Members of the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion on the projection license.
Make a motion to approve a petition by Charter Cross Street LLC and Massachusetts Department of Transportation for the granting of a projection license within Cross Street, as read into the record by the chair and as shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Projection and Canopy License Plan, Cross Street, 198 Hanover Street, Boston proper, one sheet dated October 20th, 2017.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you very much.
The next item is on a petition by TGA 70 Federal Street LLC for the making of specific repairs within Congress Street, Boston proper, Located on its westerly side, generally north of Federal Street, consisting of sidewalk reconstruction as well as new specialty pavement. This was new business on November 16th, 2017. This is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Specific Repair Plan, Congress Street, Boston proper, 2 sheets dated October 31st, 2017.
Good afternoon, Chairman Osgood, members of the Commission. For the record, Marvin Sine of Goulston Stores, pleased to be here on behalf of Transwestern. As mentioned at the November 16th hearing, Transwestern is proposing new entryways and certain other interior lobby renovations to its building located at 70 Federal Street. As part of the renovation project, Transwestern is proposing new concrete sidewalks and new specialty colored concrete along Congress Street, fronting the property. Here with me today are Harold Pandya of CBT Architects, as well as Mark Jackson of VHB, who have been working with city officials to address and shore up any issues that were raised at the November 16th hearing. At this time, I'll defer to them to provide the Commission with additional context.
Thanks, Marvin. Mark Jackson with VHB. And as Marvin said, we are proposing specific repair on Congress Street, and this includes the extension of specialty colored concrete 2.9 feet over the property line to support the front entrance lobby renovations. And we're also replacing a small section of the concrete sidewalk in front of the entrance to provide accessibility and create that 7-foot clear pedestrian path of travel. And since our new business hearing, we worked with Sarah and the Disabilities Commission and came to an agreement on the specific color.
Sorry, the color is
It's all yours.
Sarah Leong, Mayor's Commission for Persons with Disabilities. We worked with the project team to minimize the impact of the colored concrete on the pedestrian path of travel. The concern is that large changes in contrast can be easily mistaken for steps or holes for constituents and pedestrians with low vision. After review of the samples, the Commission asked the proponents to consider lightening the color of the darker shade of concrete to reduce the degree of contrast. However, they declined consideration, citing aesthetic concerns with the overall project. We found that this was acceptable since other aspects of the design had been accommodated to meet the Commission's concerns, such as minimizing the dimension of the sidewalk, the colored concrete on the sidewalk to provide 7 feet of slope compliant and city standard concrete on the sidewalk.
Sarah, it wasn't a ringing endorsement, okay? I felt like she was. Are you still okay with the color contrast, even though it doesn't meet, it meets national guidelines, but it may not meet the Commission's guidelines? Are you still okay with it?
Yes, so we are okay since it is a small portion on the pedestrian right-of-way in the whole scheme of things, so it has very minimal impact.
So anyone who is listening on this conversation, don't let this isolated approval by the Commission take it as a panacea for you to do things of this nature everywhere else. Okay?
Thank you.
Other questions or comments or other elements of your presentation? Members of the Commission? Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right. Entertain a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve a petition by TGA 70 Federal Street LLC for the making of specific repairs within Congress Street. It's read into the record by the chair and is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Specific Repair Plan, Congress Street, Boston proper, 2 sheets dated October 31st, 2017.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to new business. Our first item is 114-140 Western Ave, Brighton, pedestrian easement, specific repairs, private utility license on a set of petitions by the President and Fellows of Harvard College.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I'm Peter Kohansky from Goulston and Stores. I'm here on behalf of Harvard University. I'm joined by Joe O'Farrell, who's the Managing Director of Harvard Capital Projects. as well as Mark Younghans from VHB and Mike Regan from VHB, who are the project engineers. Harvard has submitted 3 petitions in support of work in the area of Western Avenue and North Harvard Street in Alston. This is work, all of which is part of Harvard's institutional master plan for the Alston campus. You will remember that the Commission approved specific repairs and pedestrian easements along Western Avenue just about exactly a year ago. The approvals we're seeking now would continue those streetscape conditions east of the previously approved specific repairs and easements. We are also requesting the approval of a grant of location to allow private utility conduits to cross North Harvard Street, which would serve Harvard properties on either side of North Harvard Street. Joe is here and can give you a quick contextual overview of where this fits into Harvard Zion, if that's helpful.
So this is all in support of Harvard's institutional master plan amendment, which was approved in 2015. There were 3 properties in that approval: the district energy facility, 114 Western Avenue, and the science engineering complex. And there was a level of supporting roadways also a part of that. And we're now looking to bring online the 114 Western Avenue portion of this project, and also complete the grid of utilities arising out of the district energy facility crossing North Harvard Street.
Can you please be ever so kind and put up the specific repair plan for Western Avenue? Thanks, Mark.
Yep. Mark, do you want to take over?
Should be the very first one. Any one of those. Just a point of clarification. This is new business. Your cross-section which you are showing for section AA, I think you are trying to show a level of accuracy that is way beyond anyone's ability to construct, 0.05 feet. Okay?
Well, that's actually right away the right of way.
I promise you it is not 0.82.05 feet. Okay? So can you please adjust those numbers so that it actually reflects what it needs to be? I don't think we have records to half an inch. Okay?
I'll check.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's going to provide a little context. This is the science building, which we've talked about. We were here last year, and we laid out Academic Way, north to south, Science Drive, Stadium Road, and then made improvements to existing Western Avenue projects. The improvements that we're talking about today are really, from a specific repair point of view, from here to here, to extend it past the 114 building, which is now being looked at as part of the set, Science 114 and the energy facility. Pedestrian easements to support that, and then the utility crossing, which happens here, because this district energy facility, which is very sustainable way to do it, its main infrastructure comes through the campus, through a tunnel that was previously approved here, and then will need to cross North Harvard Street. Today, we're only talking about that first group of utilities, which are all electric-based utilities, telecom and fiber and primary and secondary electric. So just as a context, I'm looking at each one in detail.
One question about it. So it seems like from the cross-section from the plans, we're looking at a sidewalk grade cycle track on the southern side and a parking protected bike lane on the northern side. Is that right? What was I know that we had gone through this to your point a year ago, but walk us again through sort of what the thought was about 2 different levels of cycling protection on both sides of Western Ave.
This is Mike Regan. He's our transportation guy, and he's dealing directly with BTD on the fine points.
Right.
Sure. Mike Regan from VHB. As we went through the planning for this process with BTD, the idea was to establish, maximize the use of the right-of-way and maintain the north side curb line where it's at. We had the ability with projects that are in front of you the cycle track, basically more or less on Harbor property, and we find that level improvement for Westerners.
Okay. And with this particular specific program, you're really talking about just the south side, essentially, and not really touching the north side through much of this plan, this particular action.
There's sidewalk improvements on the north side, but yep,
right.
No cycle track.
It's an updated what's there.
Please don't.
I'll just stand right here.
Thank you so much. If I post a question that we do want equitable equitable standards, meaning the same blessed thing for cyclists on both sides, what is stopping you from doing it? Because right now you have a protected grade on the whichever side it is. Okay.
We certainly could do something where we.
I'm sorry.
We could certainly do something where we looked at doing taking off some parking on Western Avenue and moving that curb line out. Unfortunately, it lines up directly in line with the MWRA 60-inch water line that is about 18 inches down on Western Avenue. So there was no way to establish a curb line to the south of the north curb line on Western Avenue.
Can you do a tiered curb line? Right now, what's your curb reveal over there? 6 inches? I'm going to assume it is. Okay, that's our standard.
Yeah.
So you can go from a 6 to 3.
The idea here was that MWRA, we talked with MWRA about putting any kind of curb line above their pipe, and they were not receptive to that idea.
I think it needs to be a conversation between them, us, and you. I'm not cheating if you have your support, because this is going to be a heavily cycle. I mean, this is where we first put someone put a cycle, whatever. Okay. So let's be consistent with the type of clients which you are going to propose and come out from here, their age bracket, the mode of transportation they use,
sure,
and what we are trying to provide. So let's sort of keep the bigger picture here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. The north side, it's not a simple bike lane. Well, what Harvard is putting back is a separated bike lane, a buffered bike lane on the north side. So
just want to make sure that the south side, where it is at grade with the roadway, has been fully explored in a combined conversation between MWRA, because I'm finding it surprising that their asset is only 18 inches underneath our roadway. That's interesting. Okay, so let's have a conversation with them, and if it comes to the fact that they can't tolerate 3 inches of asphalt, which we may have to put for a multitude of reasons. Okay, so I think you need to have that conversation.
I think between now and the public hearing, we can just have that in the floor. We get BTD.
Yeah, we'll look at that.
Yep. Other elements of this, Mr. Douglas?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, it's an extension of what we had talked about last year. One of the bigger changes is really integrating this bus stop a little better. We spent a lot of time with EPA coming up with a plan that worked, and actually we had input from disabilities and BTD in developing this design, final placements of the ped heads to make sure that it was supportive of disability limited folks and making sure that it provided the appropriate level of safety. We, once again, separated bike lanes, essentially just creating that new streetscape on both sides of the street, and then blending in before Hay Street. This is being done incrementally as these buildings are coming online. There is a pedestrian easement along the south side because, as Mike mentioned, the roadway needs to get bigger to contain all the things, the buffers, the parking, the lanes, the turns, and everything. And so we've taken that up in pedestrian easement to grab the appropriate space for public pedestrian access moving from west to east. The pedestrian easements are pretty straightforward. We tried to show the existing pedestrian easement in one patch and then those pedestrian easements to make it as clear as we can. The idea is that these specific repair pedestrian easement plans would replace what we had approved previously. The only changes were what we're talking about.
So does it flow continuously, Mark?
Yes.
The easement? Yeah.
On the crossing of North Harbor Street, are we ready to go to that? We're asking for a grant of location to Mary's Corner site here. So it's this north roadway that sweeps along an intersection of Harvard Street north of existing 175 North Harvard, which is an existing one-story building. And the utilities that are bringing across in this first piece are primary utilities to connect to existing infrastructure on this side of the street, secondary utility, secondary power and telecom related to their roof homes, security, lights, that sort of thing. And then Harvard, HUIP, Harvard University, information technologies, kind of their technological backbone, which will tie this part of the campus with this part of the campus, and it's all tied into creating an efficient web of utilities for the new portion of the campus to the old portion.
Mike, is there room to get that baby across?
Well, we actually modified.
You're going low.
Okay, you're going like all the way to.
Mike's comments to get an
18 inches below the lowest.
below the sewer. Yeah. We're hoping for less.
How does that?
Coordinate with the MWRA on their water line and that access.
So since you're going across the street and putting basically a barrier at a certain height, what does that do to any future utilities to go parallel to the street?
Well, we're pretty deep, so it actually still leaves a cross section for utilities to get up and down the street.
Mike, if you need something in the future, do you still have an opening?
We believe, we push them slightly deeper.
Okay.
And we believe that we'll have an opening because we do contemplate the replacement of the water main, possibly the sewer. So having them below is okay.
Okay. This duct bank system, is it just telecommunications or is it juice or is it every?
Juice as well,
So
primary,
everything,
secondary, and
telecom. Hopefully, no one should come. When I say no one, other utilities, telecommunication providers should come in the future asking us to connect your two campuses. You're providing all the services.
These essentially provide the services for north to south. As far as other, if you're asking about other providers coming off the right of way into the site,
Yeah.
I'm not sure on that. We do provide a shadow conduit in this design.
City shadow.
Yeah. And the idea is that we get this done now, so when we go to work on this site, a little bit less.
This location is well to the west, right, of, okay, yeah, North Harvard Street at, what is that cross street, South Campus Way or Academic
Well,
Way?
this is Academic Way. It doesn't exist right now.
Got it.
Behind the construction fence.
Yep.
I should remember the detail that we looked at for the public realm plan that's part of the sort of Beacon Yards element, but is there anything which on the specific repair plan that we're doing here that is sort of not following some of the design standards that may have been specified in the larger Beacon Yards conversation?
No, this would be, it's, you know, quite separate from that. It's
I realize
yeah, no, it's like, this is the kind of institutional piece. The Beacon Yards is the.
Right, but we're using a similar design aesthetic to what was described through the public process for the area that's right adjacent to this. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions or comments on any of this? Amy or Todd? No. Members of the public? All right. Will 2 weeks be enough time, December 21st?
I think it should be. Yep.
All right.
Great.
Let me know if you can help coordinate the BTD conversation.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next item of new business is 50 Stanford Street, William Cardinal O'Connell Way, Boston proper, pedestrian easement specific repairs on a set of petitions by RAR 20-2-50, Stanford LLC.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. While we're setting up, I can go ahead and get started in the interest of time. Attorney Nick Zazula from McDermott, Quilty and Miller. With me to my immediate left is Jason Costello from Margulies Peruzzi Architects. To my far left, Stephen Ventresca from Niche Engineering. I'm just going to give you a brief overview. I'll keep it as quick as possible. But 50 Staniford Street, it's an existing 10-story medical office building and structured parking facility. It's located in the West End in the city off of Cambridge Street between Staniford and William Cardinal O'Connell Way. The proponent, RAR2 50 Staniford LLC, recently bought the property in April of 2015. And the overall proposal here is to add approximately 19,282 square feet of floor area to the building, along with some facade, site, parking, loading, pedestrian, vehicular access improvements, and things of that nature along William Cardinal O'Connell Way, which is why we're in front of the commission today, including approved utilization of, there's an existing courtyard area, which Stephen will talk about in a little bit more detail, and some other additions of occupancy to the premises. So the overall project is in a planned development area. It's also in the West End Land Assembly Plan from 1957. So up until this point, we've been very involved in a community process because we needed to obtain a PDA amendment in order to allow for that extra floor area, as well as a minor modification to that West End Land Assembly Plan from 1957. So we've had a robust and extensive community outreach process as a result of those changes with the community and the city for basically the past year or so. The project that we're going to show you today is a result. It includes a lot of comment from both the city and the community to what we're going to show you today. And Stephen will show you in a little bit more detail, but the two purposes that we're in front of the commission today is for a pedestrian easement along William Cardinal O'Connell Way of approximately 2,444 square feet, and specific repairs along William Cardinal O'Connell Way, about 600 square feet of specific repairs. So that's where we've been, where we are today, and I'll let Stephen go into some more detail as to specifics for today.
Good afternoon, Stephen Ventresca with Niche Engineering. So I'll walk through the plan. If you have any questions, please let me know. But essentially, we'll start on O'Connell Way, and there's an existing curb cut here. It's currently about 20 feet wide. We'd like to extend that to 24 feet wide within the site, and then approximately 29 feet wide as we get onto the face of O'Connell Way. We'll do a continuous sidewalk through here. That would be by permission. We're upgrading the sidewalks along O'Connell Way to cement concrete, and we're providing planters along the edge of the curb line. We are looking to provide a bump out down along O'Connell Way, 40 feet long and 7 feet wide, so that you can pull it off. This is actually where the ride drops off patients currently, and so we were asked to provide this bump out so that the ride can pull off safely. I should point out that we are providing irrigation to the trees here, which is coming out of the building at approximately this point. As Nick mentioned, we are providing an 8-foot wide access easement, which will allow an 8-foot wide public way, essentially, along O'Connell Way until you get to the pinch point here of the drop-off area, where we get to about 6.9 feet at this location, and then approximately 5.9 feet. So we're meeting at least the minimum 5 feet from the entire way from property line all the way to Stanford. We're upgrading the electric handholds to the polymer system that the city prefers. And as we get to Stanford Street, the only sidewalk that we're touching is the existing sidewalk that was not changed as part of the cycle track project. That includes the pedestrian ramps at this corner, and then obviously the pedestrian ramps across the way at O'Connell and across the way at Stanford are compliant with the brand new passing lanes. We are providing, there are 2 dead trees right now. We're going to provide 3 new street trees. We've not gone to the hearing yet. We're scheduled for January, so we understand that there may be a risk involved with that, but we're confident that we can get that approved. We do show irrigation here as well, and that's coming out at this point. We are in the middle of a BWSC process. We've gone through a couple of reviews, and we're looking to close out this as soon as possible. We have provided petitions to DPW, and so any comments that you have or questions, we're happy to answer.
Just a quick question on the drop-off point, which makes lots of sense. It seems like in general throughout, you've got around an 8-foot path of travel. By the bump out, it's closer to just under 6 feet. I realize you're probably correct. Are you limited by the building on the other side?
That's correct.
Okay.
Limited by the building, correct. And so we had actually talked about that drop-off, and it's shifted back and forth, just discussions back and forth with the community and with the city. So this is, I guess, the sweet spot at this point.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that the building is located based on the foundation wall of the parking garage below, which in the existing condition marks the available edge of that sidewalk. So we're not actually, technically, even if the building wasn't coming out to that point, we would not be able to extend the sidewalk at grade any further to the north.
It seems though, depending upon how long the pickup and drop off is, that you are going to end up with less than 24 feet path to travel, folks who are going by. But I guess if that is, you have this conversation with BPD, you have a BTD, you have these conversations with, yes. This seems like a long conversation. That's correct.
Yeah, the pull-off was actually a BTD request that was accomplished by the project.
The pull-off, I totally agree with that. It's just the ideal location for it. This seems to then make it hard for anybody who's continuing down that sidewalk during that process.
So I'm very familiar with this building, as many of us, because our physicians may be there. So again, in the interest of time, we'll try and close this issue out. I just don't want to take any more time here, but I'm not sure whether this is the optimum balance between parking needs and 24/7 continuous needs for pedestrians, including those that are coming to the physicians' buildings, because your main doors are aligned in such a way. So let's continue this discussion, but not here. Okay?
Can I point to the...
Later,
okay.
sir, with all due respect.
Okay.
And I assume you guys are working on an LMI to the irrigation, landscaping, et cetera?
That's correct.
Okay. Other things that you wanted to cover? All right. Other questions or comments from the commission? Name your tongue. Members of the public? Okay. We'll see you in 2 weeks on the 21st?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Until then.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next item is 321 Harrison Avenue, 1000 Washington Street, Harold Street, William E. Mullins Way, Boston proper. Pedestrian easement and specific repairs on a set of petitions by 1000 Washington, Boston owner LLC.
Members of the commission, my name is Paula Devereaux. I'm an attorney at Rubin and Rudman, and I'm here on behalf of 1000 Washington Boston Owner LLC. And with me is Todd Fremont Smith from Norwell and Company and Brian Postawade from SMA. Sorry about that. We are here for a project at 321 Harrison Ave, and that is on a parcel of land about 84,000 square feet that's bounded by Harrison Ave, Mullins Way, Washington Street, and Harold Street. On the site right now is an existing parking garage, and also an 11-story office building. What we are proposing is to build on top of the parking garage an 8-story office building, make significant pedestrian realm improvements, which is why we're here, and also redo the lobby in between the new office building and the existing office building. The existing office building would be about 215,000 or 230,000 square feet, and I think that's it. We've gone through a robust community process. This has gone through the BPDA, and it is a planned development area, PDA, and we've applied for the building permit. We have it signed TAPA. I'll turn it over to Brian to explain exactly what we're here for: two things, specific repairs and also for a pedestrian easement on Harold Street. So, Brian?
Good afternoon. I think the best course is just to go around the project and discuss the improvements on each of the streets. This is a rendering of the plan. Focus forward a little. Would it be easier for you if I refer to the rendered plan or to the individual?
You can start with that.
Okay. So I'll start on Harrison Avenue and work our way clockwise around the block. So the key improvement, the key element on Harrison Avenue is that BTD has a 100% reconstruction design for Harrison Avenue. So from the very beginning of the project, we've been using their plans to set our edge of curb line, and we've been using their plans to guide us on the streetscape improvements, so that we're both matching the plans and realistically, as well as matching what the rest of the street is planning to do, including across the street at Ink Block, which has already been constructed, and across Mullins Way at 345 Harrison, which is currently under construction. So in the end, the sidewalk ends up widening by approximately 8 feet. The specific improvements that are going to be carried on the public right-of-way portion of Harrison Avenue is going to be concrete sidewalks, granite curbing, raised granite planters for trees and landscaping in the furniture zone with bike racks. We are also going to be providing pervious pavement so that we can both increase groundwater infiltration. We are in the GCOD district, as well as to help the plants grow vigorously in this location. The other element here is that we are maintaining the existing 26-foot driveway into the parking garage, but under existing conditions, there's another 26-foot driveway going into the existing loading dock that we're removing. And since due to the existing loading dock being much oversized for an office building, we're reducing the scale of the loading dock and putting in a new retail area as requested by BPDA and BCDC. Working our way around the corner on Mullins Way, Mullins Way as part of the planning in this zone, as well as mirroring what 345 Harrison has approved, is to reduce the curb width and widen the sidewalks in Mullins Way to provide 2 travel lanes and widen sidewalks in lieu of street parking, so that our side of Mullins Way will essentially mirror the 345 Harrison side of Mullins Way. The additional work that's going to be going on in Mullins Way is reconstructing the existing driveway for the loading area. We worked with BTD to come up with an acceptable access into that loading dock. And we've also sized it such that it will work with the proposed uses on site, which is the existing office building and the new office building. The last thing that's going on in Mullins Way worth noting is the reconstruction of water lines in Mullins Way itself between the curbs. So we will be repaving Mullins Way in its entirety.
So where do we land on that second water main? Are we moving it? Our concern was that we didn't want planters on top of it, right?
Correct, correct.
So
And
both are going into the street?
that is the current plan. We haven't finalized it with Phil, but I think that's where we're going.
Yeah.
And we've laid it out, we've seen that it works. We're just reviewing it with our contractor and estimating to make sure that it's the right thing to do. But I think from a city perspective and eventually from a full development perspective, that will be.
Yeah, I mean, we can work around tearing up concrete sidewalks, but the planters do present an issue, right?
Well, we have removed the planters altogether, but really what it came down to is the streetlights. And I would argue the streetlights might be more difficult to deal with than the planters are.
Yeah,
continuing around the corner on Washington Street, as one thing to note is all through here, we're trying to do a consistent brick paving up against the curb line to have a consistent furniture zone that's consistent for our project, but also matches other projects in the area. And we're also reconstructing all of the curb ramps around the project. So the curb ramps at Washington Street and Mullins Way will also be reconstructed. Washington Street has an established curb line that we're matching, and we don't plan to change. We will be replacing and repairing and resetting the curbing as required to make sure that we get the good 6-inch reveal and we get the correct cross slopes on the sidewalk, but the curb alignment will remain the same. The existing sidewalk here is all brick pavers, and we're proposing to remove the brick pavers and replace them with concrete. That's consistent with what 345 is doing and consistent with what Commission for Public Disabilities would like to see here. But we will be replacing the pavers in the furniture zone, similar to the rest of the project. The existing street lights will be retained, though they'll be removed and replaced as needed for construction, and we've been working with street lighting on that. And the last element is that we're removing trees and replacing them. We were in, one of my colleagues is at the tree hearing this morning. I was hoping I'd actually hear back by now, but I haven't heard yet. And again, we have the existing 26-foot driveway apron accessing the existing garage, which will remain. And lastly, on Harold Street, we have a rather narrow sidewalk right-of-way. We're not widening the street or widening the sidewalk here, and we are taking the existing trees that are on private property, and we're removing them, and we're reconstructing or replanting new trees in the furniture zone along Harold Street with new lighting to get a consistent planting zone that meets Complete Streets guidelines and exceeds it. What we've decided to do is that where our building lands is the foundations is well within the property line. So we would like to create a pedestrian easement of 2.7 feet along here so that we have at least a 5-foot, I think I have a minimum of 5.5 feet pedestrian zone throughout Harold Street. And that brings us back around to Harrison, where we began.
So they're pretty close to having an approved site plan from us, and they've worked well with it.
With the new streetlights, we're doing electricity but not fiber right now. It's something we talk about between now and the public hearing. We are, just because so many of our lights are being converted for uses to do things that are in addition to lighting the public right-of-way, that require actually good connectivity to fiber, that there's maybe value in us looking at whether there's something in the near term, so that in the future we aren't redigging up the sidewalk to put in fiber because we weren't considering it at this point. Maybe we can have a conversation.
Yeah, I'll give you the details.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Other questions or comments?
It's an exciting project.
It is.
Yeah, we hope to start construction in March.
Sure. Amy, any questions or comments? No? Members of the public? John?
No, I'm all set.
Okay, good. All right. Will 2 weeks be enough time?
All right.
Okay. Yep. All right. See you on the 21st then?
21st.
Terrific.
Thank you very much.
Our next item is 260 Franklin Street, Oliver Street, Boston proper, pedestrian easement and a projection license on a set of petitions by 260 Franklin, Inc.
Good afternoon, members of the Public Improvement Commission. My name is Mary Marshall, and with me is David Burnell of JLL, as well as Frank Holmes of Stantec, who are collectively representing the owners of 260 Franklin Street, which is a Heitman affiliate. We're here before you for what we hope is a very modest request, which is approval of a projection license and in exchange a grant of a pedestrian easement. This is the final element in the repositioning of the lobby area of 260 Franklin, which you may recall is located at the corner of Franklin and Oliver Street. It is to date a rather interesting but 1980s era lobby, and the hope is to bring it with much greater lightness and openness to the pedestrian realm. So with that, Frank, I ask you just to walk through.
So Frank Holmes from Stantec, and we have here a plan that just has the area of the projection license that is requested. The canopy highlighted in yellow. There are two areas that total 117 square feet and 80 square feet between them. It's all been designed in accordance with the city standards. It's not projecting conservative away into the sidewalk. The second request for the pedestrian easement is at the same corner of Franklin and Oliver Street, and in the existing condition, the building follows the rounded building line at the corner, and the brick sidewalk there is effectively used as public pedestrian area as it is. We're reconstructing the wheelchair ramp at that corner, and to make it ADA compliant, a portion of that ramp will extend onto the private property. And so in discussions with VIC, it was recommended that we make the entire area that's used as a public sidewalk effectively granting pedestrian easement for that. Glad to answer any questions about those two areas.
This is the only canopy on that block of Oliver and that block of Franklin. Is that right?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, this is the only canopy on that block of Oliver and that block of Franklin? Just that block?
No, there's just one canopy.
Right, just
yes,
one canopy,
just
right,
one
exactly.
Canopy, yes.
Right.
I was like going visually down the street.
I just wanted to make sure that
just one.
we didn't have sort of a staggered set of canopies
No,
up and down
one.
that block,
Yes.
and that's the only
Sort
one.
of marking the main entrance
Exactly.
to the building.
That's correct. It's just entirely, the interruption is because a portion of it's entirely on private property.
Other questions or comments about either of these? These are the production assistant. Name your time, Sarah.
Sarah Lang, Mayor's Commission for Persons with Disabilities. We'd just like to confirm that the reconstruction of the pedestrian ramp will be in cast in place concrete with a yellow tactile warning. Great.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? 2 weeks enough time to see you on the 21st? All right, we'll see you then. Our final item of new business is Cross Street, Hanover Street, John F. Fitzgerald Surface Road, Boston proper. Grant of location on a petition by Light Tower Fiber Networks.
Good afternoon. My name's Chris Murray. I'm with Light Tower Fiber Networks, and we're petitioning to install conduits for telecommunications on Cross Street, Hanover Street, and Surface Road. The method of construction will be micro-trenching, which also includes city shadow conduit. We solicited to rent city shadow conduit, but there was none available in those areas. And we sought out participants, and there are none. Total length of the installation is about 1,650 feet. And we received no conflict from the Public Works Department Street Lighting Division, and are still waiting on the mayor's office for their input. 2 issues of note. One is that I spoke to Todd and Amy earlier. Apparently these streets in this area are going to be, or they're under the jurisdiction of Mass Highway currently, but they will be transferred to city ownership in the near future. We will coordinate with them appropriately. The other issue that came up was in the public hearing item 6 earlier today. Charter Cross Street LLC was going to be doing some work in a similar area. I've reached out to them. We've traded information, contacts, so that we can coordinate appropriately with them as well.
On these plans, you show several spots where you're going to be in the sidewalk.
Correct.
How are you going to restore it?
We, those are brick sidewalks, and we're going to store it in kind with the same bricks.
How do you cross the
As you may, we met with Tim O'Donohue in your department.
Yes.
And he actually made that recommendation because in that particular area, there is a large infrastructure of some kind of water device that precluded us from going over it.
Yeah.
That's a curb-to-curb facility. So the only way that we can get past it is going up on the sidewalk. And that's pretty much what I'm talking about with this agenda item number 6, the Cross Street LLC. They're going to be doing brickwork in that same area. So we'll either remove the brick and replace them in kind, or use the same type of brick. I know there was an issue with there's 2 different types of brick, so we'll make sure that we take that into account.
Many types of bricks. So how do you get underneath the curbs? Do you move the
Well,
curb
for
and
the
reset?
curbs, we could just get under it. We won't have to cut through them at all.
And a 12-inch depth, what is the, yeah. You'll be
Generally,
below-
yes.
You'll be below, you can bring it below the granite.
Correct.
And there's 1 duct for city shadow?
Correct.
Other questions or comments? No? Amy or Todd?
Do we want another city shadow?
That's, yeah, I mean, yes.
I think we need to consider servicing these new restaurants and
They're
residents
popping
that
up.
are part of number 6.
Right.
You want to sponsor the plaza?
Excuse me?
Maybe wire
Long day.
kiosk in the future?
Maybe wire kiosk in the future, actually.
Yeah.
Right, and that should be part of your conversations with Cross Street. The folks on Cross Street, we do think that there will be fiber and power needs for the kiosk, for other things. To Commissioner Nelson's point, that happen over time. So I'm glad you're having those conversations, and we should talk about city shadow between now and the public hearing.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. 2 weeks enough time?
Absolutely.
See you on the 21st.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor? All right.